across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's me, Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for the great Ian Collins here on the home of common sense. That is Talk. We've just had the amazing Julia Hartley-Brewer. Now I'll be guiding you through the next 3 hours. And coming up on today's show, first of all, furious Waterlooville locals have staged an Epping-style protest after secret Home Office plans to house migrants above shops were exposed, branding it a disgrace and warning of chaos. Meanwhile, Chancellor Rachel Reeves is accused of hitting pensioners with a £500 a year retirement tax as frozen thresholds drag even the basic state pension into income tax for the first time. And top British lawyers have warned Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer that recognising a Palestinian state could breach international law, raising serious questions over the government's foreign policy agenda. You know what to do, ladies and gents. We want you to call in. Leave us a voice message on 0344 499 1000. You can text with the word TALK at the start of your message to 87222, and you can follow us and message us on @talkTV on X, formerly known as Twitter. And our big question for today that we want you to call in about is, if migrants aren't housed in hotels, then where? If migrants aren't housed in hotels, then where? Well, let's get to our very first guest and ask him that very first question. His name is Alex Burghardt. He is the Conservative Member of Parliament for Brentwood and Ongar, and he's the Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster and, of course, a former colleague of mine. Hello, Alex. How are you?
Hi, Jonathan. Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you for coming on. If we can start, obviously, we've seen these amazing scenes of a peaceful protest, it should be said, in Waterlooville, an area covered by your colleague Suella Braverman, who's launched a petition that's had over 9,000 signatories, and she said to the Daily Mail, "I'd like to thank the thousands of peaceful protesters who came out this evening to tell the government that Waterlooville says no. The British people have had enough. The invasion must end." First of all, Alex, could I just quickly ask your reaction? Do you understand why there is now such public anger that people are literally protesting outside asylum accommodation?
Yes, of course. I mean, I've seen some pretty big protests, as you know, Jonathan, on the edge of my constituency in Epping. Epping's not in my batch, it's in Neil Hudson's, but I'm next door in Brentwood and Ongar in Essex, and completely understand why people are unhappy. In the case of Epping, it was triggered by an alleged attack by one of the residents on a young girl locally, very similar to what we saw in Ballymena in Northern Ireland a few months ago. And I think that it's very frustrating because when, as you remember, when we left power last summer, we had a plan to stop the boats. We had the latest iteration of Rwanda, which was ready to go, and the Labour Party came in and scrapped it. And it means there's now no deterrent in the Channel, and it means that the numbers are clocking up and up. We've had the worst year ever for crossings because I think the gangs on the other side of the Channel know that Labour is a soft touch, and that is the worst place to be. So you've now got all of these extra people coming over, and you've got slow processing of the people who are already here. Those things have got to change. But you also, in the case of Epping, which I know quite well, it's a terrible location for migrant housing, right? That it's right on the high street. It's in a heavily built up residential area, and it's at the end of the tube line, so that you can see people who want to cause trouble often from the pro-migrant protesters coming in easily on the underground. And I understand that people who are waiting for their asylum cases to be processed are going to need to be housed somewhere, but that's entirely the wrong sort of setup. That you want to see something much more like hostel accommodation rather than very expensive hotel accommodation being used. But ultimately, we don't want people coming to this country illegally. If they get here, they should be swiftly moved to a third country, such as Rwanda, or taken home.
And if we just quickly play a clip for you, Alex, this is the scenes from Waterlooville yesterday, and it's to emphasise the fact that this was, as I say, a very peaceful protest.
We did not consent to them, and we did not vote for them. This action to house illegals in Waterlooville is about as undemocratic as it gets. We demand the deportation of every illegal migrant. Send them home! Send them home!
Now, Alex, at the end of that clip, you heard there the gentleman saying that he wants the deportation of every illegal migrant. Will the Conservative Party, if they were to get re-elected in 2029 into government, honour that pledge that the British people are calling for? Would they detain and deport all illegal migrants?
Yeah, so you've seen the draft bill that my colleague Chris Philp, who's the Shadow Home Secretary, has brought forward, is very much what we're working towards. The work that Lord Wolfson KC, very senior, experienced barrister, has been asked to do by Kemi Badenoch to make sure that we can break down all of the legal obstacles to being able to deal with the problem in just that way.
And with the protest, as you say, in Epping, and you're much closer to the scenes there with your constituency, do you feel quite frustrated to see that the policing in Waterlooville seems to have been much better than that of Essex? And do you join your Essex colleague in Nigel Farage in demanding that the Chief Constable resign, having appeared on social media videos that have been put out to see police escorting Antifa and Stand Up to Racism pro-migrant protesters towards the Epping, at the hotel in Epping, and then seemingly putting some in the back of vans and driving them away afterwards? Is it time for the Chief Constable of Essex Police to stand down?
So as I've made clear to clear at the time, I thought it was wrong to allow those opposing protesters to be transported to be escorted up to the scene of the other protests. I didn't think that was conducive to the peace. It's very good to see that what's happening here in Waterlooville is being very well managed, and it's important to remember that the vast majority of people who are involved in these protests are not interested in violence at all. They're just interested in hearing their voices heard. Obviously, in a very small number of cases, which we saw in Epping, where people started to attack the police or cause damage to police vehicles, that's completely unacceptable, and that ends up casting everything in a bad light. And but it's important to remember the vast majority of people who are protesting are doing so peacefully and reasonably.
And to challenge a bit on the Conservative record, obviously, Alex, the argument would be made that under the Conservatives, as of May and June 2024, there are around 90,000 illegal migrants waiting, or asylum seekers, should I also say, awaiting a Home Office decision. Further, 42,000 having appeals waiting in court. The Conservative Party left a large backlog. They saw over 100,000 illegal migrants enter the country via small boat. The argument would be that how can the Conservatives really be trusted to actually deliver this time on things like mass deportation when their previous, between 2019 and 2024, when people like me served as a Conservative Member of Parliament, we simply failed to get anyone. In fact, more Home Secretaries went to Rwanda than illegal migrants.
Well, look, obviously, the fact that we didn't manage to solve this problem was one of the reasons why we lost the election, and we're very, very aware of that. And I dare say, people such as yourself, Jonathan, nobody more aware than you, because you good MPs like yourself ended up bearing the brunt of that. What I would say is that it wasn't for want of trying. That we, as you remember, we tried to pass 3 Rwanda pieces of legislation. We were fought every step of the way by Labour. We were given a very rough time in the courts. And what it's taught us, what it's shown us, is that you absolutely have to cut through everything. You have to be prepared to change your international agreements. You have to be prepared to take a very, very hard line, because that is what the public wants, and it's right to want it.
And there's a challenge again. So Keir Starmer would say that under this government, they are putting deterrents in place. Their deal with France, they would say, is landmark, first of its kind, where they'll be able to send people who have crossed the channel on small boats back to France, that will therefore smash apart the smuggling gang's operational model. What's your response to that?
I think we all know that the deal with France is just a total nonsense. And I think it's 1 in every 17 people is supposed to be sent back. I mean, it's absolutely no deterrence at all. I also don't really believe it will ever happen. It's sort of one of those things that was cooked up to have something to say when Macron was over here. I think it's very, very likely nonsense. And I'm afraid that the Prime Minister has made his own bed. Right, we were trying to solve the problem. I think we had gotten there right by the end, but we're now absolutely gearing up to go further should we get back into power. But he scrapped the best hope for solving this problem. And when he did so, all of the gangmasters in Calais looked across and went, right, this is easy pickings. We're not going to have any trouble here. And sure enough, the numbers have gone up. They're going to carry on going up because I don't think this government has the stomach to deal with the issue.
Well, moving on to another story, Alex. Today, the Conservative Party has put out the very real concern that Rachel Reeves is set to smash pensioners with a £500 retirement tax. For listeners' sake, a continuation of the freeze on income tax thresholds would mean that state pension, for the very first time in its history, would be eligible for income tax if the state pension continues to rise at the rate that it has been. Even those, as I should argue, as well say, people who are solely dependent on the state pension could face a 20% income tax. It's expected that the 6th of April 2027 is when this could come into place. Alex, what's the concern here? I mean, the argument will be, obviously, Labour would say, well, we've not made our decision on the budget. You need to wait and see. But, of course, we all know Rachel Reeves is going to have to find some money from somewhere. And I think Sir Keir Starmer has continually ruled out delivering on the promise that Chancellor Reeves made last autumn that she would unfreeze thresholds. It feels like pensioners are once again in the firing line, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think pensioners are sort of all destined to be collateral damage throughout the lifetime of this Parliament. That it's obvious that the Labour government doesn't have their best interests at heart. What we can see from the work that we've done in the Conservative Party is that because inflation is high and the threshold at which people pay income tax isn't moving, it's going to become increasingly likely, in fact inevitable, that people receiving state pension will have to pay some income tax on what they receive. And this is in the context of increasing cost of living pressures, increasing fuel bills and food bills. Rachel Reeves has a choice. She can change course at the budget in the autumn. She can protect pensioners from this. But there's every sign that she's not going to. And Kemi asked the Prime Minister a few weeks ago to rule out freezing thresholds in the budget. He refused to do it, so we know that they're considering it. And this is, as you say, this is just part of their plan to increase tax on everyone, which they need to do because of the disastrous choices they made at the budget in November. Rachel Reeves's budget has systematically started to destroy employment. We've got about 1,700 fewer jobs in the economy than we had this time last year. Business confidence is at a terrible low. We're seeing a lot of businesses close, and the consequence of this is that in order to make up the shortfall in receipts, they're going to have to put up taxes. But when they do that, we're going to see a big pressure, downward pressure on growth. And that means we're in this sort of doom loop where they put up taxes, growth gets worse, they've got to put up taxes again, growth will get worse again, and so on and so on and so on. And the real risk here is that we end up in a major debt crisis, a major financial crisis, because all the people out there who lend the UK government money start to look at us and say, the UK is not worth it. They're too in debt, their economy is going in the wrong direction, let's not bother. And that will be very, very serious for all of your viewers.
And when it comes to the Conservative record again, Labour would argue that under the Conservatives, the threshold was frozen for many years. And so my question would be, if the Conservatives were in power right now, would you unfreeze thresholds? And if so, how would you pay for it? Understanding the very challenging economic circumstances which we as a country are facing right now.
Yeah. So look, as you know, Jonathan, I can't make tax promises 4 years out from an election. We don't know what sort of state the economy will be in by the time we get to 2029. Although all the indications are it'll be very, very bad. What I can say to your listeners, is that the Conservative Party, new Conservative Party led by Kemi Badenoch, very, very much wants to reduce people's tax burden. We understand that you can't tax your way to growth. The country needs growth, so that people have more money in their pockets, so that businesses can invest and the economy can grow and everyone can be better off. The Labour government is going about it in entirely the wrong way. Very heavy taxes on businesses, squeezing pensioners, squeezing working people. That's got to stop. We want more people to earn more money and keep more of that money to spend it on the things they want, and that's what a Conservative government will prioritise.
But can you understand why pensioners therefore might feel disappointed that whilst the Conservatives are right to be pointing out that this potential grab of the retirement tax could be coming their way, that the Conservative Party themselves are not committing to protecting those on just the state pension solely by ensuring that they would not pay any income tax, even if that they by either raising the threshold or by making them exempt from income tax altogether? Is that not a commitment that the Conservatives can make at this time?
We've committed already that we would stick to the triple lock, which was a Conservative invention, which has created a considerably better deal for pensioners. We are on pensioners' side, and as we approach the next election, we'll be looking at more that we can do to support them and help them. But now is not the right time to set that up.
Because the triple lock obviously increasing by either 2.5% or indeed if inflation is higher as it currently is, means that will only accelerate the point at which potentially pensioners on the state pension could tip into the income tax bracket. So again, can you not see or understand that maybe pensioners will feel very disappointed that whilst they're grateful the Conservative Party are bravely pointing out the fact that in 2 years' time they will be hit in their pocket, the Conservatives themselves are not committing to actually taking pensioners out of income tax?
Well, look, we don't know what's going to happen at the next budget. We hope that Rachel Reeves will do the right thing. But as I say, we're committed to getting a better deal for pensioners should we go into power, commit a better deal at the next election for them. And that's what we're working towards. But 4 years out, we don't know exactly what which levers we're going to pull yet.
And final question for me of this segment, Alex, is that obviously Kemi Badenoch has said on the Financial Times last week that she wants to be the UK's President Millet. Now, I suppose this again would raise concerns when it comes to pensioners, because President Millet of Argentina has opposed Congress trying to raise the minimum state pension. In fact, he's cut public spending by around 30%, of which pensions were among the hardest hit. So isn't it a bit of a quandary here for Kemi Badenoch? How can she be a Millet whilst at the same time overly protecting pensioners with things like the triple lock, whilst there are lots of young people still struggling to get the housing ladder?
I admire your in-depth knowledge of Argentinian politics, Jonathan. Very. Look, I don't think that Kemi was suggesting that she agreed with President Millet on everything. You know, President Millet is also in favour of the Falklands being Argentinian. And Kemi is very, very much against that view. The point that she was making was that Millet has not been at all afraid to tear up pointless regulation, and in doing so, and pointless taxes. And in doing so, he has started to balance the finances of his country, which have been terrible for a very long time. He started to bring back growth in a way that's inspiring, and there are some lessons for us to learn there. But no, that doesn't mean that we would do exactly what Millet is doing, Jonathan. But yeah, nice one.
Well, look, Alex is going to be joining us after the break, so we're grateful for that. But just before we go to the break, there's some breaking news that now that more than 25,000 illegal migrants have arrived in the UK after crossing the English Channel so far this year, with 898 arriving yesterday alone, according to the latest Home Office figures. Ladies and gentlemen, if they're not going to go in hotels, where are they going to go? Call in 0344 499 1000. You can also WhatsApp us on that too. Text in the word talk to 87222 and message and follow us on X at talkTV. We'll see you soon.
I think what we were just talking about, it is the donors, it's the rich, it's the elites, it's the fancy people in the media, no offense, who are all on the other side of the people. I wrote Adios America, which I do think influenced Trump's immigration policy quite strongly. And, you know, as I said in that book, I've never seen an issue where you have the people so much on one side and the elites and the politicians directly opposed to them.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. This is the home of Common Sense, and I'm Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for the great Ian Collins. I'm delighted that our guest, Alex Burkhart, Conservative Member of Parliament for Brentwood and Ongar, as well as the Shadow Chancellor of Duchy Lancaster, still joins us on the line. Alex, if I can come to you with some news that came out yesterday. Adam Holloway, a former colleague of ours, has defected from the Conservatives to join Reform UK. Was just keen to get your reaction. Obviously, you've been a Member of Parliament for 19 years, and obviously before then has served in the military. Is this just a story that will never end for the Conservative Party?
No, I think Adam's made a mistake, and I'm sad to see him go. But I think that as time passes, it will be clear that the public are going to have a choice. Our voters are going to have a choice at the next election between a Labour Party that is clearly failing in government, has made terrible decisions affecting the economy and much else besides, and Reform who understand the anger in the nation, but don't have a clear plan to sort it out, don't have the experience of government needed to sort it out, and a Conservative Party that has learnt the lessons that it needed to learn from its time in power about how the system doesn't work and how it can be fixed and how it can deliver for the British people and give our country a period of renewal. And I'm confident that under Kemi we're going to be able to do that. And so I'm sad to see Adam leave, but I think he's backing the wrong horse.
Well, moving on to another story is the armed police officers who were involved in this Manchester airport attack. And just for, again, listeners, Mohammed Fahir Amaz, a 20-year-old student from Rochdale, was convicted of punching PC Lydia Ward, which caused a broken nose, and as well as assaulting PC Cook. So the two female police officers, he was convicted. However, I just want to make this abundantly clear, the jury was unable to reach a verdict on whether he and his brother also assaulted the male officer, PC Marsden, and both men will now face a retrial on that charge. So we'll be focusing specifically about Mohammed Fahir Amaz, who was found guilty of assaulting two female police officers. However, Alex, there will be a lot of concern out there. The Independent Office for Police Conduct is still continuing to investigate two of the officers involved in this brawl, as it ended up becoming. And, well, it's been, a number of days since PC Zachary Marsden and PC Ellie Cook are still under investigation, nearly a year on now, despite the fact now that we have a conviction for one Mohammed Fahir Amaz for assault on two female officers. Shouldn't the IOPC just drop these investigation charges now against these officers? Weren't these officers doing what they should be doing, which is keeping the public safe in an airport of all places, and having to take hard measures necessarily? Because obviously an airport would be, for example, a place where a terrorist would likely want to attack, and they have no idea what the motives of these individuals were.
Yeah, and it very much looks like the police officers have been entirely vindicated, as I think many of us thought they would be. And it's been anyone who's seen the footage online, I think, will be horrified by what happened to that female police officer. Yeah, it's genuinely distressing to see someone who is working in the service of her country being treated in that way. And I'm very glad that the man in question has been found guilty. And I think that. And I hope that he gets a very serious sentence. So send out a message that this is not in any way how you treat the police in this country. And I think it's very unfortunate that a number of Labour politicians made assumptions early on that it was the police that were in the wrong, and having done so, have subsequently refused to apologise or retract. And one of those people was the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper.
Well, I think actually we have a copy of her statement that we might be able to flash up on the screen shortly, where she put out at the time, as you say, Alex, some words which would have brought some concern to some listeners. And we also, I think, have a clip of Paul Waugh, who is the Labour Member of Parliament for Rochdale, speaking in the House of Commons back in July 2024, where he raised, obviously, his concerns after the imagery of the police taking force against Mr. Amaz and others.
The video footage of a Greater Manchester police officer stamping on and kicking a man in Manchester Airport is truly shocking and disturbing. That man is one of my constituents in Rochdale, and I'm meeting his family later today. Our police face a very difficult job every day in keeping us all safe, but they themselves know that they have to expect the highest standards of conduct in their duties. Will the leader make time in this House to discuss the important issue of police conduct?
Can I thank my honourable friend for that very important question today? And as I said, clearly the footage is incredibly disturbing, and there's understandably a lot of concern, particularly in his constituency, because it was his constituent affected. Greater Manchester Police has said that the officer involved has been immediately suspended from all duties, and a referral has now been made to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. I will make sure that the Home Secretary has heard his question today and is in touch with him at the earliest opportunity to discuss it further.
Alex, do you think it would be entirely appropriate for Paul Waugh, the Labour MP for Rochdale, and in fact even Lucy Powell, who is an MP covered by Greater Manchester Police Authority, to both apologise for undermining the police and undermining, therefore, the duty of police officers, which therefore will have a knock-on impact on recruitment, as well as the police wanting to get into becoming armed officers, which Sadiq Khan managed to underwhelm and undermine previously in London, for example?
Yeah, I'd very much like to see them reflect on the things that they said at the time and apologise, and perhaps go and visit the police officers who have been caught up in this, and think about what they've been through. It's just, if we want people to work in our police force, if we want people to take on difficult roles within that police force, just for example, as you were saying, like working in airports where the risks are very high, things can go very wrong. The public are incredibly dependent on the police's hard work and integrity. If we're going to, if politicians are going to undermine that by leaping to conclusions, then if those conclusions prove to be wrong, they really need to eat a bit of humble pie and make some apologies to not just the police as a whole, but also the individual officers who were caught up in it.
And then final one from me, Alex. Some of Britain's most prominent lawyers and, in fact, even peers, 40 members of the House of Lords, in fact, have signed a letter to Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, saying that Sir Keir Starmer could be breaching international law by recognising a Palestinian state. Obviously, I'm flabbergasted that Sir Keir Starmer's doing this. To me, it seems like pathetic virtue signalling in order to try and regain some sectarian political votes to bolster him on the left, in order to make sure that he somehow doesn't lose out to Jeremy Corbyn, and obviously Emily Damari, who was held in captivity for 471 days by Hamas when she was taken on that dreadful day, the 7th of October 2023, has said this is a national embarrassment as well. Do you agree this would be a breach of international law, or do you just think this is downright wrong?
Oh, look, I'm not a lawyer, but there's some very respectable names on that letter who are big experts, and I have no reason to doubt what they say. I think, however, this idea of recognising Palestine at this time is just utterly wrong-headed. That whilst you have Hamas in charge of Gaza, terribly violent terrorist organisation, there isn't going to be peace, and there isn't going to be the stable basis for the future. And I think that most reasonable people would understand that any future settlement cannot involve them, cannot involve Hamas, certainly can't involve any organisation that is still holding hostages from the 7th of October. They are still holding Israeli hostages. The very first thing that everyone should be asking is when those hostages are going to be released.
Alex Burkhardt, Conservative Member for Brentwood and Ongar and Shadow Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster, thank you so much for joining us and giving us half an hour of your time, whilst I also know you're on dad duty over the summer holidays too. Ladies and gentlemen, you know what it is that you need to do. You can call or voice message us in on 0344 499 1000. You can text in the word talk at the start of your message to 87222, and you can message us and follow us on X at talkTV. We'll see you after the break.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You're here on the home of common sense. That is Talk. I'm Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for the great Ian Collins, and we want you to be texting and calling in 0344 499 1000. You can also WhatsApp on that number too. Text in the word Talk at the start of your message to 87222 and follow us and message us on X at TalkTV. Before I go to my next great guest in the studio, I've had a few texts. Jonathan, stop scaremongering about tax on pensions. If they pay tax on their pension, it will only be on the amount over their threshold, so it will not be a great deal. Stop making out they will be paying 20% on all of it. That's from Andrew Johnson. He's told me. Another one from Ian Day. Why have you got a Conservative MP on blaming Labour for what the Conservatives did? Well, Ian, I like to think I did push back quite heavily on what Alex Burkhardt was saying and reminding him of the legacy. And I will have another great guest for you in Gawain Towler, Reform UK, running Reform UK candidate for its party board, who will, I'm sure, give us the counter viewpoint to Alex Burkhardt's claims there. And another one here from Derek Hancock, who says, at our town shopping centre in East Kilbride near Glasgow, illegal migrants have been housed in once popular Bruce Hotel. This has been going on for a few years now, and the migrants are often seen wandering about the shopping centre and in the nearby village area at night. How much is this costing? Well, very good questions indeed. And as I say, I'm delighted to be joined by Gawain Towler, former Director of Communications for Reform UK, and now running as a candidate, one of 19 candidates for its party board. Gawain, we've had the breaking news come out just now that more than 25,000 illegal migrants have arrived in the UK after crossing the English Channel so far this year. That's 2025 alone, with 898 arriving yesterday. Have Labour got any credibility on smashing gangs?
All those gangs smashed. It's so impressive. And I see that yesterday the French let somebody there was a court case about one of the suppliers of boats to the gangs who wasn't even sent down, who wasn't even imprisoned. So they've got one, and they let him go.
I wonder what he might be doing now.
It's like fishing in a small river. You let the fish go, and you catch them, let them go, and that seems to be the way we operate. And in fact, we know we've got to catch them and put them on the fire.
Yes, we haven't seen any more French police puncturing boats in front of British TV cameras. Amazing, isn't it? Just
the one, and there was, remember, one boat that we towed back to France.
Yes,
for the cameras.
Yes, indeed.
One boat. It's just day after day after day, these figures continue to rise. This is a record-breaking year, and it's not the sort of record we like to break, is it? I want records to be broken on the track and field. I want records to be broken in sales figures to abroad. But what the records we are breaking is the import of people, and that is something that is causing huge distress up and down the country. Because downstream from them landing to Dover, downstream of that, what can the government do if it refuses to deport other than to put those people into our communities? And we see up and down the country people are increasingly worried and concerned because they see the crime rates. Now, there's no direct link between bloke X and crime Y, unless in the case they've been arrested and charged, but the general feeling of malaise, the feeling that yet again they're being let down, that governments are making promises that they just cannot keep, even if they wanted to keep, is really seeping into the general public. And it's not just the white working class that are getting increasingly concerned. This is spreading deep across not just our cities, but our towns and even our villages. And it's breaking through across the board. And of course, politically, it is fueling this extraordinary rise in reform. We wouldn't be at 32% in the polls if the last government had kept its promises and this government actually did a job.
Well, I was going to say, Gawain, Alex Burkhart said that Chris Philp, the Shadow Home Secretary, has produced a deportation bill and that the Conservative Party will work towards deporting illegal migrants and foreign national offenders. They say that Reform UK don't really have a plan. The plan to tow boats back to France won't happen. The Royal Navy won't do it. That Macron won't accept it, and that you'll just have a standoff in the Channel.
Didn't the Labour Party manage to get one boat towed back to France? So clearly they accept it in certain circumstances. No, the whole point is one, nobody trusts them. We don't believe you when it comes to the Conservative Party on this. We just don't. And you just have to have with the polls. A trust in immigration policy. No, we don't trust the Tories to be able to define an immigration policy. Even if they've got one, nobody's going to believe them because of their track record.
Even though they've produced a bill, you don't think that voters can say, look at Kemi Badenoch and go, no, she will deliver on the thing that she's promising?
She's not going to be in a position to deliver, so it's pointless to a certain extent. But I think more importantly is what Reform are doing, and we're working very hard to produce a comprehensive plan on how to deal with the situation as it is. And it will be quite staunch. But that is, we have to change. You've got to change the incentive structure that brings people here. Smashing the gangs is pointless if the incentives remain. And if the incentives is we make lots of cash, you can smash every gang you want and another 5 pop up. It's Hydra. It's a Hydra-headed problem. You've got to change the incentive system, make it completely not worthwhile coming here if you come here illegally. Absolutely. And so therefore what you have is nobody who ever comes here irregularly or illegally will ever get the right to remain. Period. Don't care. And so therefore, what's the point of coming? There's no point in coming if you can't stay.
And so you're confident that with Reform UK we will see in the months and years ahead a detailed policy that outlines exactly how they'll deliver on their promise.
100%. But more important, as I say, you need to make it worthless for somebody to come here illegally. Because if you don't, if you maintain the incentive structure, if you maintain once you stay here, and then you get an anchor baby and so on and so forth. If you say, no, I'm sorry, if you've arrived illegally, that's it. You go. You get nothing. And only then do people stop coming. People come because they get something. So therefore you change the incentives. People will, dare I say, for want of a better word, self-deport. You don't have to round people up in Black Mariahs, because if they don't get anything, they'll go back to where they at least have something. That's how you change it. You don't change it with rattling police shield, bang, 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 bang. No, you don't do it like that. You don't do it in the Channel. You do it in their minds.
And, big news, obviously, for yesterday for Reform UK. Another defection, another ex-Conservative member of Parliament, Adam Holloway, who, of 19 years, so significant amount of time served in the House of Commons,
former army officer.
and a former army officer, has defected to Reform UK. He said here that the Conservatives do not provide an effective opposition and saw joining Reform as a rescue mission. Is Adam welcome, or are the members starting to get pretty tired of ex-Tory MPs defecting?
I think Adam is definitely very welcome. The messages I've received on my internal WhatsApp groups from people have been pretty universally positive. One or two, are you sure? Yes. But equally, from friends in the Conservative Party, there's a bit of soul searching going on. Some of them who are on our side of the argument broadly did ask questions about Jake Berry coming over. They did. But on this one, they're universally, that's a loss. That's a proper loss. Like David Jones was a couple of weeks ago when it became very public that he joined us when at Both Wells and the Royal Welsh Show. What you're seeing, these are good people, but your point is well made. There comes a point where the defection doors close. It's a case of We've got 230,000 of our own members, thank you very much. And those people have joined us without a fanfare, without excitement, without all the rest of it. So there are, and it's a good question, but we're also picking up. There was a Labour councillor in Scotland who came over recently. But you've got to remember, and this is something I do when some of the Reform people get a bit itsy about why we're accepting all these Tories. I said, well, we got 4.1 million votes last time. To become the government, we have to get 12 million. You're not going to get 12 million votes and the supporters and the sort of people who are in that group unless you get people who've been in other parties. That's just the nature of the beast. So we shouldn't be too precious about purity. The left have always been, they've had a problem with purity in the past. You've got to have been on our side for 20 years in order to be relevant and to be real. No, we can't do that. We cannot demand purity from everybody. Do you know, 15 years ago, you believed in this. Yeah, but I've changed my mind. Well, do we trust you that you changed your mind? And we have to accept and be broad and welcoming to people. But I do think that the former MP, former senior officials, former people of that sort, assuming that they can come into the party and they'll get not so much a buy, but they'll get encouraged to stand for seats to come back into those roles. I'm Jonathan. but I do think that there is the appetite is diminishing, I think is the best way of putting it.
And out of interest, I suppose anyone who does defect, they're going to have to go through a normal selection process like anyone else. So they'll have to win the support of local members.
The local branches.
And as a party board member, if you were elected, you would demand that would have to happen.
Once people have jumped through the hoops of vetting and all the rest of it, once that's been done, then, according to our rules, they can apply for any seat they wish. Of course they can. And then it is up to that local branch to make a decision as to who stands for them. So you may get somebody who's a brilliant ex-Tory or Labour or whatever MP in their seat, and the branch goes, nah, we like this fella or this woman, and that's just the nature of the beast. You can't. There's not going to be. You're not going to people being defecting into us and then getting the seat. I don't know. I'm not sure about this, but if you have a sitting MP who does it, that might be slightly different.
Yes.
That might be slightly different.
And do you accept that? I mean, Adam Holloway does propose some challenges. He does accept, look, he knows he's taken a risk, and he does say, you know, for example, that Reform's got to lose some of its combative edges, attract serious talent, professionalise further, and create credible policy. Do you think those are fair challenges from the new Reform member in Adam Holloway to Reform?
I would say that that's a fair challenge for every party. That's not just something Reform has to do. Looking down Whitehall at Labour at present, they certainly need to do that sort of stuff. And the Conservatives also need to do that sort of stuff. The Lib Dems, does anybody talk about the Lib Dems?
No, we don't really.
I don't know. Who knows what they'd get up to? But no, those are fair questions. But those are questions that we are very public about saying ourselves. We are well aware that there are these lacks. We have lacuna. We have gaps in our capacity right now. We are entirely aware of that. But that's why we're reaching out, that's why we're talking to people across the board and trying to learn and trying to fill in the spaces between the policies we already know.
Well, look, Gawain Taller's going to join us in the next 15 minutes after this break, because I want to talk to him about what's happening with Palestine. I want to ask him what's his views on the Manchester Airport. Reform UK were wanting to take a private prosecution that did seemingly get the CPS to take action and now has led to at least one individual now being convicted. So, ladies and gentlemen, 0344 499 1000. Text in the word talk. The start your message to 87222 and follow us on messages on X at talkTV. We'll see you soon.
I think what we were just talking about, it is the donors, it's the rich, it's the elites, it's the fancy people in the media, no offense, who are all on the other side of the people. I wrote Adios America, which I do think influenced Trump's immigration policy quite strongly. And, as I said in that book, I've never seen an issue where you have the people so much on one side and the elites and the politicians directly opposed to them.
Prime Minister.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello everyone, it's Jonathan Gullis sitting in for the great Ian Collins here on the home of Common Sense, that is Talk, and you have been texting and calling in. A text here from Joanna in Salisbury. Hi Jonathan, at what time do you think Starmer will actually say we are full? It's now getting ridiculous. That's off the back of the fact that we've now had officially recorded over 25,000 illegal migrants have entered the UK over 2025. A record-breaking number, smashing records but not smashing gangs. Another one here. As a veteran and pensioner, my pensions are added together and taxed. Shame your so-called informed guests are so out of touch. That's from Dave in Dorset. It feels like Alex Burkhardt and the Conservative attempt to say, watch out, we'll protect your state pension is backfiring, with people kind of suggesting that a lot of people are already paying it. And obviously Alex Burkhardt did refuse to say that Conservatives themselves would raise thresholds, and therefore you have to assume that therefore leaves it open to the interpretation that those people would fall into the tax bracket under a Conservative-led government. Another one here, but from Mark. Remember, under the Conservative governments of 14 years, over 400 hotels were in use to house asylum seekers, costing nearly £9 million a day. Never trust the Conservatives. Vote reform. I think Gawain will be very happy to hear that. And that is a text and I see regularly coming in. Another one here again. Jonathan, the UK is made up of 187 islands. Take your pick. Once they get here, give them all a phone so they can call home and tell their mates what a horrible place it is. The fact is there is no political will until we leave the ECHR and a party gets in who will do, as they say, social unrest will increase and will become poorer. That's Matthew from Cheltenham. So even in Lib Dem territory, Cheltenham, there are people getting cross and crosser with this. And then, Jonathan, we must construct Nightingale-type accommodation on airfields with security fences around them. All their needs catered for on site, and no one leaves until processed to stay or be deported. That's from Mike in Blackpool. Well, I would say that when it comes to our question that we've posed to you, if we're not going to use hotels, then where else? You've got some good ideas. Use other islands, use disused military bases. Do not put them in private rented accommodation, as we've seen in Waterlooville being looked at by the Home Office. Do not put them in hotels, as I campaigned against when I was an MP in places like Stoke-on-Trent. People are sick to the back teeth of it. So there we go. Strong feelings there. Gawain, do you want to any quick comments on what the Exes are saying?
The government are trying to close down hotels. This is true. But what do they do next? Will they put them into HMOs or multiple occupancy in smaller and smaller places, making more and more trouble at a local level? So instead of improving the situation, when they close down the hotels, actually they're making it worse and they're dissipating it across the country, and it becomes harder and harder to control. So the bottom line is you've got to stop the boats. You've got to stop them coming. If you have a bath and it's overflowing, you turn off the tap before you even try and deal with the plug. You just turn off the tap, let it cool down, and then you could possibly reach for the plug and do something about it. If you try and plunge your hand in while the tap's still running, you're going to scald yourself. And
sorry, I forgot to introduce you, Gawain Towler, former Director of Communications for Reform UK, who's still joining me in the studio. He's running for the party board. He's one of 19 on the list. I completely endorse him if Reform wants sensible people on their party board, although that might not help him with me being a Conservative Party member. But I think that they would, if you want someone who's been loyal to the cause, someone who's been consistent for the cause over decades, not just the recent success over the last 18 months, Gawain is your man. Now, Gawain, we know that yesterday, Mohammed Fahir Amaz, he was convicted for assaulting the 2 female police officers in Manchester Airport. And just to say, for the sake of listeners, the jury were unable to reach a verdict on whether he and his brother also assaulted the male officer, PC Marsden, but both men will now face a retrial on that charge. But my concern, listeners' concerns, will be that 2 of the police officers who were referred to by the Independent Office for Police Complaints are still under investigation for what they did. How on earth can we be investigating police officers when people have been convicted for assaulting them?
You can't Just because they've been convicted for assaulting the police officers, or he has been convicted of assaulting the police officers, does not mean that the police officers themselves didn't do something. And I think the film did suggest that they did possibly overreact at that point. But when we first saw the film, and it was outrageous of the police officers' response, we had no idea of what had happened beforehand. And so therefore the country's mood was very aggressive towards those police officers, and that was an act by the Greater Manchester Police. They released that video. They allowed their police officers to be pilloried. So the whole mood changed. When we then started to see the other film of the accused and the person who's been found guilty thumping, breaking noses and stuff of this sort, then the mood changed. But what I think is absolutely disgraceful, and there's so many things in this world, in the world of bureaucracy, is that this case has been going on for more than a year. The punishment, even if they're found not guilty by the police investigation, the police internal inquiry, they've spent a year sitting there, I guess on suspension, not being able to get on with their lives, not being able to get on with their jobs. The punishment is the process. Don't you dare even consider doing something, even if we find you not guilty, don't you dare consider, we are going to ruin your life. And we need justice not just to be done, but to done with a reasonable time frame. And this is not. Because, as I say, these days, the greatest punishment of all is the process.
And we saw Nigel Farage recently launch the Lawless Britain campaign, which Reform are doing over the summer recess period. And he was obviously saying he wanted big, strapping police officers. Sarah Pochin was saying that we need police to be tough. Do you think that there's too many politicians for too long have been willing to undermine the police because they've not been willing to push back on some of the online sentiment from the left on X and allowed the narrative of America and how policing is happening over there creep over to somehow say that this is also happening in the UK when actually there's no evidence that we're anything like that? I
think we have seen too often, and again, it's everything is televised these days, everything is filmed, but we've seen too often police officers who are not up to the physical aspects of the job, who are overawed, who are just pushed around like rag dolls because they're not robust. With the best will in the world, if you're 5'2", you really shouldn't be in this role. You really shouldn't. And it doesn't work like that. And what that Reform was saying is that those people who retired from the military should be given should be encouraged to join the police because they have a far more physical capacity amongst them. And the idea, I think Sarah was saying, if rather than having two police women on patrol, having a male and a female at all times, because at times look what happened to those two poor women in Manchester Airport. They were just battered, and that is awful for them. But maybe we shouldn't be putting people in that role. Maybe we shouldn't be opening up that problem. I know we have to have equality, and I know all the rest of it. Of course you do. But if you then put people into roles that actually physically they shouldn't be in, is that not the responsibility of us, of the society, not to be putting people into those dangerous roles for them? And the British police have a very good reputation, even now, for being decent as best they can. And we look at America, and it's a much more robust policing system. But we don't carry guns, by and large. Our police do not, and we like that. And I think we want to keep that if we possibly can. We don't like that aspect of it. The whole point is that the police are citizens. They're citizens first, and policing is by consent. And if we get too much the great strapping chap with all extra bits and pieces attached to them, they look like Inspector Gadget these days. But if they become more and more divorced from the public and more taken away from us, then the consent is going. I think if you look at polling now, consent is rapidly just vanishing. People no longer trust the police. And that's not just because of the physical size, it's also the political way they're being driven by the College of Policing and the way that these days you're more likely to be in trouble for saying something naughty on the Twitter. I mean, there was the report produced by Policy Exchange yesterday. I think 1 in 170 robberies in London is now cleared up. And yet, if you say something rude on Twitter, you'll get a whole bunch of people reporting you and you'll be picked up. So, in fact, you're more likely to get arrested and charged and investigated for something you said than for something you did.
They will.
And that's not right.
And that policy exchange report is fascinating, and it certainly holds Sadiq Khan to the fire. And we saw Leila Cunningham, Reform UK Council for Westminster City Council, chasing Sadiq Khan down in the street, who I also, on the video footage, was booed by people as he walked past, demanding him to face a debate with Nigel Farage. But Sadiq Khan, I'm assuming, hasn't come back and said he's up for that debate.
Not yet. I mean, there have been times, I'm not frightened of debating Nigel Farage. All right, then. Go on, then. We're here, we're ready. Nigel has made it very clear he's happy to do so, and yet I think it was bluster on the part of the mayor. I don't...
Be careful before you speak next time, maybe.
But it's not just that. And how many times have people thought, we can have a go at Nigel, we can have a go at Farage, and he won't kick back? I mean, a certain bank made that mistake when they debanked him, didn't they?
Yes.
A certain Alison Rose lost, what, 9 million in her bonus because of this?
Yes.
Big mistake. And in the time and time again, we have had the situation when people think they can bully Farage, and it doesn't work.
And then final story for me is a shocking story where veterans face eviction from council housing. We see around a dozen ex-Army and Navy veterans in Bolton have been issued eviction notices by the council there, who have said they will be stop paying their housing benefit. Many of them have complex health conditions and things like PTSD, and they've got to vacate it by mid-August. Is this just a shocking indictment of how we treat our veterans?
I am absolutely shocked by this. Look, I don't know, and I'm a little bit cautious, what the reasons they've been given for being evicted. But even so, what are they going to do? Evict them and put them on the streets? Is that what happens next?
They're saying they have no idea yet where they're going.
If the council evicts you, then what do you do? But maybe they'll share an HMO with illegal migrants. I don't know. This is something that it feels... And whilst I do not know the specific details of this case and why they've been given these eviction notices, the mood, again, what does it say? What does it say to people who've served? What does it say to young men and women who want to serve? We worry about recruitment and retention in our armed forces. This is one of the reasons, because the state, the authorities, regard them as so much trash.
Well, to read out, Scott Berry, 55, one of those who served 6 years in the Royal Signals, was quoted saying, "You have migrants who we don't have a clue about being given everything they need. We are veterans and they don't give a damn. We could be made homeless. We still don't know. You never know what they plan to do." And the council and Qualitas is the housing association, I think, they're involved with, are passing the buck. Have a bit of grace. Gawain Taylor, from former Director of Communications for Reform UK and candidate for the party board. I hope, wishing you the best of luck in that. Again, I'm not trying to damn your chances. Sorry, Gawain. But thank you so much for joining us here on the home of Common Sense, that is Talk. Remember, 0344 499 1000. Text in the word Talk at the start of your message to 87222 and follow us and message us on X at talkTV. We'll see you shortly. Okay, everyone?
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's Jonathan Gullis sitting in for the great Ian Collins today, joining you between 1 and 4 p.m. before we hand over to Peter Cardwell to take us through drive time. It's going to be a great show, so make sure you carry on tuning in. Make sure you keep texting in. Make sure you keep calling in, because coming up, furious Waterlooville locals have staged an Epping-style protest after secret Home Office plans to house migrants above shops were exposed, branding it a disgrace and warning of chaos. Meanwhile, a radar software glitch is being blamed for triggering an air traffic control meltdown yesterday, grounding over 150 UK flights and stranding thousands, with travel chaos threatening to drag on for days. And the Met is ramping up live facial recognition across London, despite outrage from privacy campaigners who warn that the unregulated tech possesses a serious threat to civil liberties. And you know what the big question is already, but just to remind those of you maybe just tuning in, if migrants aren't going to be housed in hotels, then where? Call in 0344 499 1000. You can also WhatsApp and with a short voice note on that too. Text in with the word talk at the start of your message to 87222 and follow and message us on X at talkTV. We want to hear from you. And blimey, have you been texting in? Here we go. Some more ideas here. This is one coming in via Mark. During COVID, we managed to build Nightingale hospitals that could hold 600 people. Build a few of those somewhere in an uninhabited Scottish islands. Guard them with ex-veterans that can live on site. The problem would solve within a month. And Neil's also texted in, you asked where to house migrants. Given the fact all are unvetted, I think they need to be in secure camps. I think we need to build tented or similar type camps with basic facilities. Once vetted, then they can go into hotels or HMOs. Let's stop making the UK so attractive. Well, there's some ideas there. Make sure you keep, as I say, texting in 0344 499 1000. Text in the word talk at the start of your message to 87222 and follow us on messages on X at talkTV. We now go to our next guest. Her name is Candice Holworth. She is a writer and broadcaster, and she's joining us down the line. Hello, Candice. How are you?
Hi, Jonathan. I'm good, thanks.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And Candice, before we get on to talk about what's happening in Waterlooville, just to remind listeners the breaking news that more now officially, based on Home Office figures, more than 25,000 legal migrants have come to the UK via small boats across the English Channel over the course of 2025. This now then will only add more fuel to the fire when it comes to public's mood on this, when residents called out the fact that there are secret Home Office plans to put 35 illegal migrants into 19 flats that would normally cost the top end of the market around 250,000 per flat. Waterlooville saw residents peacefully protest. Around 1,000 people showed up to say enough is enough. Candice, do you think the public are right to be out there outside asylum accommodation? Some would say that this endangers those, not just those inside the building, but those working on the facility, and actually undermines the cause because it will be hijacked by agitators on the far right.
Yeah, I think as long as it stays peaceful and non-violent, then it's okay. As soon as it becomes violent in any way, intimidates people, it menaces people, then it's wrong. I mean, that's the history of protest. You will be able to apply political pressure and affect change if you keep things peaceful. If you start becoming violent and you start hurting people, your movement will end up in tatters. That is what has happened throughout history. So if they want to have any influence whatsoever, keep it with ordinary people, keep it peaceful. I just think people feel it's their only option, that they're getting so sick of this. They vote to have change and no change happens. So that's when people take to the streets. And I think from what we see, from people on the ground who've attended these protests, it largely is just ordinary people. It isn't, mad fanatical idiots who live their lives online and just want to cause trouble. There is quite a good cross-section of the community, and they just genuinely believe that politicians locally and nationally are doing something that they really, really disagree with. I mean, I know someone who visited Waterlooville recently, and he was shocked at just how neglected it's become. I mean, he was saying, like, the high street, there's so many shuttered shops. I mean, I think that's across the country. People feel like the local politicians are not prioritising the right things. And, of course, we know that housing is a big source of misery in this country. People can't afford a home, or if you're waiting for council housing, you can often wait on insanely long lists. And if you do manage get accommodation. It's often not up to par. I mean, it can be really, really, really horrible. So I think that this policy of dispersing people around the country, it's adding to the misery, and I think it was only to be expected that people would be angry about this.
Do you think Keir Starmer is going to really struggle to ever regain credibility? The fact now we have 25,000 illegal migrants coming across the Channel in 2025 so far, a record-breaking year on course for Sir Keir Starmer compared to 2024, around 50% up today. 898 arriving yesterday. We obviously know the weather's a little bit rougher now, but we've still got the whole of August to go through, and then September, where obviously weather is expected to be much better. How much trouble is this going to cause Labour?
Oh, massive. I mean, I thought that this was going to happen from the minute they scrapped the Rwanda scheme. I thought that was the most foolish thing they could have done. I mean, that whole smashing the gangs only focuses on one side of the equation. It focuses on the supply side, so the traffickers, rather than what the Rwanda scheme did, which was focus on the demand side, you know, the people paying the traffickers. They have no credible policy to do this. They will never be able to do it. I just think Labour thinks that any sort of thing which sort of limits people being able to come here, the demand side, they think it's cruel. So it kind of leaves them unable to face the problem head on. And I don't think they can recover from this. And, you know, the problem is, though, the one problem is, even though the public are unhappy with what Labour are doing, and they absolutely are, the right has become very fragmented in this country. So when it comes to elections, even if people are unhappy, Labour could still win because people on the right are so unhappy with the right. So, like, that vote is all split. So we could just end up stuck with Labour for God knows how long, even though they're doing things we don't like.
We need to get the people on the right maybe into a room and hash out who's going to have a go, hey? But, yeah, I'm sure that the egos in that room would be quite extraordinary to be amongst, I suspect, and would never come to an agreement. And it couldn't be done over lunchtime because Kemi Badenoch obviously doesn't believe in a working lunch. We've obviously got another story here about middle classes face threat of higher bills to pay for net zero. Ofgem's launched a review of energy bill costs to protect low-income households. Jonathan Brearley, Ofgem's chief executive, has said that, and this always scares me when I see this phrase, progressive billing is a possibility. Whenever I see the word progressive in front of something, I think it's doomed to failure. He's saying about the fact that they're going to have to look at the fixed network costs that are put on energy bills in order to help pay for the decarbonisation of the grid. At the moment, that's around £300 of our bills that are on these fixed network costs, of an average bill of £1,720 a year, which has obviously risen sharply since 2019. President Trump, I think, was pretty damning about the wind turbines. He's obviously been very blunt on his Truth Social account about drill, baby, drill in the North Sea in order to excavate natural oil and gas that could be used in this country. Is Keir Starmer starting to lose the war when it comes to making the case for net zero? Or do you think he's just going to carry on doing it, but albeit maybe a bit more quietly?
Well, I think so. I mean, I think that it's one of the things that people are really exercised about, especially, you know, Ed Miliband's proposals to build pylons all over the countryside. People are not happy about that at all. And like you say, when you talk about a progressive tax bill, it sounds moral to people, right? Those with the broadest shoulders should bear the greatest burden. But the problem is those people just shrug off the burden because they don't want to be milked. No one wants to be milked. It's like wealth taxes. They don't work either. And I mean, the amount of people I speak to, you know, people who have money, you know, they're relatively middle class, they shouldn't be struggling, and yet they feel like they have no money to spare at the end of the month. And so many people I speak to now are saying, well, maybe I should just leave the country. That's what's going on. That's what people are feeling right now. So, I mean, this will go down like a cup of cold sick. I can absolutely promise you. And how would they define the boundaries as well? Who has money and who doesn't? Because I think the only data they said they have is on like housing bans, you know, so how much people are paying in council tax. But you could have someone whose house on paper is worth quite a lot of money, but they're quite cash poor. They're not someone who could actually absorb rising energy. So, I mean, the whole thing, it's not going to work. You know, in theory, to someone who doesn't like who maybe thinks, well, the wealthy should just pay. Maybe they, you know, have certain ideas in their head. That's fine, but will it actually work? No, it won't work. It will just chase people away, or it will immiserate people like it's doing already. We have the highest energy bills in the world.
Well, as you say, Candice, my concern is, like you say, if you do on council tax bans, well, we know disproportionately people in more economically deprived parts of the country actually have a higher council tax because obviously it's not been re-evaluated in many, many years, and London is able to get away with paying smaller amounts. And then if you go on energy consumption, well, how's that fair? Some people might live in homes that they've had for decades, generations, in fact, that might just naturally need to consume more energy, or they've not had the money to invest in solar or other sort of pro-net zero type energy things, heat pumps that I'm highly sceptical of. So, you know, at the end of the day, this just seems to, I mean, I just can't see how this works, and it'll just be hitting again the squeeze middle, won't it? Yet again in the pocket.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. I mean, look at what, you know, middle class will be defined as. It'll be, you know, quite a low income that most people would think, actually, that's not middle class at all. Yeah, those are all really good points. I mean, there's a lot of older people, like you say, living in older houses. They may have been there 50, 60 years. They don't have a good cash flow. I mean, every month it's hard. They have to really squeeze the pennies. And you're just not going to be able to understand that if you look at data on such a broad basis. I mean, for me, I just can't understand why we can't have a common sense energy policy in this country. It's because I think net zero has become a religious belief.
Yep.
It has become an article of faith. And I think that someone like Ed Miliband is such a zealot when it comes to it. I mean, everyone can see that. We just need to do what they did in America and just put ourselves first, put our national interests first, be pragmatic. You know, use what we have for the time being instead of trying to create some utopia, because what happens throughout history, you just make everyone miserable. And that's what's happening now. No one is happy with this. You know, there's obviously those of us who are skeptical of net zero, but there are people in the countryside who, you know what, they really love nature. You know, they'll often talk about things like the disappearance of bees, but, you know, they're not net zero fanatics. But they look at stuff like all these pylons and they're pretty unhappy about it because we have such beautiful, this country has the most beautiful countryside in the world. People come here. And, you know, we shouldn't ruin that.
And another one, Candice, for me, before we let you go, is that Sick Note Britain drives numbers of jobless families to over 3 million. I mean, this is just yet another headache for Rachel Reeves in terms of the budget, but also another rod of Labour's own making, because ultimately, when they couldn't even cut 5 billion off 100 billion when it came to welfare because their own MPs rebelled so much, this is just a never-ending story. It says a record proportion of people out of work due to sickness or disability has driven the number of jobless households to over 3 million under Labour, new figures show. Almost 40% of people living in a house where not a single adult family member is employed is now out of work because they are sick or disabled. Meanwhile, the proportion of working age adults not in a job because they were unemployed, retired early, or because they were studying full-time fell last year. Candice, what's your view on this? How on earth are we going to sort out welfare Britain?
Yes, I mean, we absolutely have to. But the problem is like I say, you know, I mean, we have a government in power that cannot do that. I mean, they have this, what I believe to be this sort of welfarist approach where they treat people like they're not capable of ever recovering or doing things for themselves. Once again, it's seen as cruel, right? To say to someone who, for whatever reason, is on sickness or disability benefits and is struggling to get off it, to say to them, listen, I promise you your life will improve. If you can start working and start earning your own money, you will feel so much better about yourself. You will have pride. You'll be able to go on holiday. You'll be able to buy a car. You'll love doing all that. Those things will be amazing for you. But we're just like, there's just not that thinking amongst the political elite. They think that anyone who wants to tackle this issue is trying to attack disabled people, which of course they're not. There's nothing kind about locking people in worklessness, not at all. I mean, now you've got something like 20% of certain cities where people are on these disability benefits, which has just rocketed since the pandemic. I mean, no wealthy developed country will stay a wealthy developed country for long if this continues, because the welfare bill is just ballooning and ballooning and ballooning and getting bigger and bigger and bigger. There are people, of course, who, you know, we need to help out in society, but these are generally people who, with a bit of encouragement and a bit of help, could work and could be productive and could contribute to society. And it's such a waste of human potential. It's a real criminal waste of human potential.
Absolutely. Candice Holworth, Common Sense for Great Britain there on our channel, the home of Common Sense on Talk. Thank you so much, a good friend of ours here on the station, writer and broadcaster Candice Holdsworth, kindly joined us there to take you through more of the stories. We are going to go to a quick break. Remember, though, you need to call, you need to text, you need to follow and message us on X so we can hear what your answers are to all the big stories of the day, with the main question for today's show being, if we aren't going to accommodate illegal migrants in hotels, then where? you know what to do. Call 0344 499 1000. You can also WhatsApp in on that number too. You can text in word talk at the start of your text message to 87222, and you can follow us and message us on X at talkTV. We'll see you soon.
He could have kicked him in the body, kicking somebody in the head. If I was a senior detective investigating that, I think the problem is you're handing victim cards to that person. From them becoming the
in the heat
villain,
of the moment.
The heat of the moment, and we've all been. I've been there with a red mist. If you're involved in violence like that, where people suddenly attack you, two of the colleagues have been taken out, and you're suddenly on your own. The red mist descends, and you're sort of fighting for your life. So it is very hard to criticise when that has happened.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk. This is the home of common sense. I'm Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for the great Ian Collins here today, and we want to hear from you. The big question being, again, of the day, if migrants aren't going to be housed in hotels, then where? 0344 499 1000. That's also the way you can WhatsApp us or send us a voice note that we'd love to play on there. You can text the word talk at the start of your message to 87222, and you can follow us and message us on X at talkTV. Well, ladies and gents, we've had some amazing guests and some amazing stories. First of all, I want to congratulate those people, those patriots who are going out on the streets to campaign against private rental accommodation being used up in Waterlooville, and the bravery of Suella Braverman in calling out what it is with her 9,000 people signing a petition. At the end of the day, please always remain peaceful. Please always make sure that anyone who's there to cause trouble is pointed out to the police, even if they try and appear to be on your own side. But the only way, it seems, to get the political class to pay attention to what's going on in this country is by people having to now take to the streets. It's a downright disgrace. And I agree with many of you. We need to think about where else. We need to be creating these Nightingale-style pop-up tent areas where we can house people rather than in hotels, rather than in private rental accommodation, or indeed some social housing that has gone on occasion too, because it's just downright unfair and downright wrong. And then, of course, we've had the other story about the net zero madness continuing in this country. Ofgem is launching a review of your energy bill costs to protect low-income households. But how are they going to do that? Well, they're going to somehow magically figure out which one of you is wealthy and which one of you isn't. And then if you're wealthy, they're going to add more charges potentially onto your energy bill in order to pay for more pylons to go all over your countryside, with it being called progressive billing. Well, the moment I see the word progressive in front of anything, I think I just want to cry, because it's going to ultimately lead to more woke nonsense being enforced, more woke stupidity being unleashed upon the country, and ultimately means a downright danger for the country too. And then I want to do something that I've not been able to do yet on this show. I want to applaud those two police officers who are currently being investigated by the Independent Office for Police Complaints. And I'm going to do it now. Here you go. I'm going to applaud them for having the bravery to do their duty in a very difficult circumstance whilst protecting one of our airports, which would have been a very dangerous situation. And the Independent Office Police Complaints needs to do the right thing and drop the investigation into these officers, because the fact that one of the individuals has now been found guilty of assaulting 2 female police officers proves that those officers were acting in the line of duty. We need to have the cops' backs if we want more people to become cops, if we want people to take on things like armed policing or counter-terrorism, because if they think that we, the public, and particularly politicians, are going to undermine them or throw them to the wolves, then they are not going to take up those jobs, and I'm not going to sit here and let that happen. So well done to you, officers, for your bravery, and well done to the jury for convicting that criminal scumbag who assaulted those 2 female police officers. I hope you, sir, get a nice, long, lengthy sentence at His Majesty's Constabulary sometime soon, because you deserve a long time behind bars. And obviously, just for the sake of balance, we know that the 2 brothers are facing a retrial when it comes to the alleged assault on a male police officer after the jury were unable to reach a verdict in that particular charge. That is all I have to say. There we go. Got a few things off my chest, having to listen to lots of guests. But we have got some calls coming in. We're going to go to Georgina in London. I know that she's a regular caller here on the home of Common Sense, that is Talk, and I know that Julia Hartley-Brewer loves it when she calls in, and I think it's important we get her on this show too. Hello, Georgina.
Hello, Jonathan, and very well done. That was a magnificent speech. I applaud you. I don't know whether Gwaine is still with you, but hello to him if he is. I was listening earlier to your show and was watching Alex Burghardt, and it's exactly the rhetoric that he was speaking, which has put the Conservative Party in a moribund state. Bear in mind, I was a Conservative for over 40 years, but the Conservative Party now, there's no courage and conviction within this party. And as for migration, all they're saying is we're going to talk about it, we're going to have a meeting about it, or it's in the pipeline. There's no definite forward planning, especially where illegal migration is concerned. We have the luxury, Jonathan, of living in a sovereign state. We do not have to run cap in hand to the EU before we make political movement. We need someone with both courage of conviction and testicular fortitude to say enough is enough. Anyone breaking into this country will be taken to a holding facility without 4-poster beds and 4 meals a day and PlayStations. They need to be processed within a very limited time frame and either returned to their country of origin or to a country like Rwanda. We should not be allowing any third world waifs and strays or unvetted sexually mature fighting age men to infiltrate our shores. And as far as the very limited women and children who are crossing on these dinghies, these women are putting these children in danger. This is child endangerment. Remember, these people have come through non-war-torn countries to get to the UK. These are mostly economic migrants, Jonathan, and it's breaking the back of our country and breaking the spirit of the tax-paying British people who are footing this bill. These people need to be given no incentive whatsoever and to be sent home. This problem is a touch paper waiting to light the fire of chaos within our country, and we have got to stop it happening.
Georgina, if I had a microphone, I would drop it. You have just spoken for the nation. Thank you so much for calling in like you regularly do, and what an amazing call that was, and what a load of common sense you are speaking. And I wish I had the oratory skills that you have, and I will go away and practice. We've had a text in here from Betty that says, Jonathan, compulsory purchase the house either side of every MP school or with the £8 million per week and convert to mandatory HMO for everyone who gets into the UK and put beside those kids' schools. See how long that lasts. A challenge there about when it comes to what will we do with illegal migrants if we aren't housing them in hotels. Another one here saying that why does everyone want to stick these illegal migrants on the Scottish island? What about the disused holiday camps or military bases? But I personally think the best idea is Nightingale camps, just not on some Scottish island. That's from Jeff in Aberdeenshire. And then Another one here from Martin in Oxfordshire. The council is ejecting those veterans, know exactly what they're doing. They will now simply refer them to one of the service charities such as the Royal British Legion, Soldier Savers and Airmen's Family Association, SSAFA, SAFA, I think is how it's pronounced, sorry, and simply wash their hands of them. With most county councils, veterans are always at the very bottom of the list. We've got another caller, though. We've got Lee, who is in Liverpool. Hello, Lee.
Jonathan, are you well?
I'm good, thank you very much. I'm enjoying stepping in for the great Ian Collins, and I'm keen to hear what your idea is when it comes to housing illegal migrants, if not in hotels.
So basically, my idea is that we should offshore them. We should basically find somewhere off the UK mainland, maybe an island, and house them there. I don't see why the British public should pay for illegal migrants. I think the country's at a tipping point, and I think all these organisations like the United Nations are basically just like an anchor around the neck of the British people and holding us back. I think we should just be brave and not be the only country in the world that follows every single letter of the law.
Lee, you're from Liverpool. This will be seen as a hotbed of Labour. Do you think voices like Reform, who are probably espousing similar views to what you're saying, do they have a chance in places like Liverpool? Can they make a breakthrough? Because this issue is just so rife when it comes to the anger of the British people.
Definitely. A lot of people think that Liverpool is like the North Korea of the UK. No, it's not really. Everyone sort of votes tribally, but I think Reform could make inroads. And I personally voted Reform at the last election. Our local candidate got 6,000 votes, and I think he's going to do that at the next election. But I think people are just getting to the point now where we're seeing the absolute fraying of society, and people are looking for answers. And I also think that essentially what we should be doing is voting tactically and making sure that we look after our own people first.
Well, that's Lee from Liverpool there. Thank you so much for that call, Lee. I think a really powerful call that would have resonated again with a lot of people. And listeners, we want you to be calling in, OK? We want you to be telling us what your views are. But you do that by picking up your phone and you dial 0344 499 1000. You can also WhatsApp us on that too. And if you want to send us a voice note, my lovely team behind the glass will listen to it to make sure you're not going to get yourself in any legal trouble, or more importantly, get us in any legal trouble. And then we can play that on air. Or you can text in the word talk at the start of your message to 87222. Or you can follow us and message us on X at talkTV. Those are the ways that you get in touch to answer the question that I'm posing you today. If we aren't going to house them in hotels, illegal migrants that is, then where? People are rightly protesting, understandably, outside private rental accommodation, or indeed private properties that are looking to be procured by Serco and the Home Office in places like Waterlooville. But if we can't put them even there, then where are they going to go? The ultimate reality is we can't, at this moment in time, just send everyone back overnight. So we need other accommodation. But I need you to come up with the ideas, because it's obvious that politicians have zero idea. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk at the start of your message to 87222 and follow us on messages on X at talkTV. We'll see you soon.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back, everybody. It's me, Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for the great Ian Collins on the home of common sense. That is talk. And wow, you've been calling and you've been texting, and we want to hear from you. 0344 499 1000. You can also WhatsApp us on that number too. Texting the word talk at the start of your message to 87222, or follow us and message us on X at talkTV. We move to our next great guest. His name is Mr. Harry Miller. He is the CEO of Fair Cop and a former police officer. Hello, Harry. How are you?
Yeah, I'm very well, mate. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. Now, thank you so much for coming on, because news is coming out that the Met Police is planning to more than double its use of live facial recognition to up to 10 deployments a week. This is a move that comes in by the Metropolitan Police after restructuring to cover the loss of 1,400 officers and 300 staff amid budget shortages. Obviously, there are some people who say, oh, this is a privacy issue. You know, people are very libertarian would say this is a danger. We don't know about the technology, etc. But actually, this seems like just good common sense to me. It says, I think the Met has made 1,000 arrests using live facial recognition to date, of which 773 have led to a charge or caution.
Yeah, well, on the face of it, and if it was used correctly, I don't have any objection in principle to them using it. All of us want burglars, baddies, robbers, thieves. We want them catching, and we want them catching as quickly and as efficiently as humanly possible. So if it was limited to doing that, then I wouldn't have a problem with it. My concern, which I think is shared with the likes of Liberty and Big Brother Watch, is that even though this could be used for good, it's likely to be used for a much more nefarious and political means. The police have got history on this. We were told that non-crime hate incidents were the answer back in 2014, and that by recording non-crime hate incidents against people who had not committed a crime, we would decrease the level of hate crime. Has it worked? Has it held? It hasn't stopped a single crime being committed by anybody. What it has done, it has criminalised around about 250,000 people simply for saying hurty words. So we have that. We've got the Online Safety Act, which again, on the face of it, doesn't seem like a bad thing. The trouble is with the latest iteration of that, which is telling us that we've all got to prove how old we are in the name of protecting children. Again, nobody can argue with the purpose of it, but the practicality of it is somewhat nefarious. What it does, in fact, is stop people seeing the news that people like talkTV broadcast, the GB News might broadcast. It censors people talking about grooming gangs, all in the name of protecting children. The fact of the matter is, no child is going to be protected by the Online Safety Act. And I fear very much that this is the latest iteration of this state-controlled policing that we have. Now, it's interesting because Milton Friedman said, great philosopher, great economist, he said that any policy must not be judged by its intention, but by its use. And by that measure, I think we need to wait and see precisely how it is in fact used. I think that it's going to be used to round up the likes of anybody who is on the right wing. I think it's anybody who is likely to attend a demonstration that is questioning Britain's immigration policy. I think it's likely to be used there. I think the use of it in terms of catching actual criminals who are not political criminals or what have you is going to be very, very marginal. But, you know, I'm an optimist. I would gladly and happily be proven wrong on this.
Harry, the challenge back I'm sure you would face would be, but surely even if it did pick up someone at one of these protests, that's because that person's doing something wrong, not because they just simply attended. And I mean, I'm keen to understand, how does the technology, as far as you're aware, work? Surely it's only simply looking for people where the database says that they've currently got a warrant out for their arrest, or indeed are currently being looked into in order to try and interview, maybe, to understand what's going on with a particular crime.
Absolutely. You know, if you've just mugged somebody on the street and run off with their smartphone or what have you, and it's used for that purpose, great, hallelujah, more power to your elbow. But call me cynical, I don't think that's how it's primarily going to be used. I think it's going to be used to collect data on people that the state simply does not like. We know how quickly Keir Starmer is able to designate people who he doesn't like as potential terrorists. We know that he's able to criminalise anybody who is on the right. He sees the right wing and right wing concerns as terrorism in the making. And my great fear is that it will be used primarily for that purpose. We heard all these arguments about non-crime hate incidents back in 2014, that it was going to stop people from progressing to criminality. It was not used for that purpose at all. It did not succeed at all. What it did was criminalise people who had views which the establishment didn't like. And I have a strong feeling that this is going to be used in precisely the same way. At the moment, if you go on Twitter, for instance, or X, and you express a view that happens to align with some right-winger, there is a fair chance that you're going to get a knock on the door. Alison Pearson is a case in point. I'm another case in point. But regular people, a young 19-year-old charity worker from Liverpool, she had her door knocked on by 2 anti-terrorist officers simply because she'd expressed a view that happened to coincide with some of the views of the Southport rioters. She wasn't in favour of rioting herself, not at all, but she had some of the concerns. And what it did, it created a knock on her door. And this, I'm afraid, is how it's actually going to be used rather than its stated purpose. Like I say, I am very, very happy to be wrong. If we suddenly find that we are filling up our prisons and our courts with people who bopped somebody over the head while trying to steal their phone on the streets of London, great. You will get no complaints from me. I'll come back on your show and say I was entirely wrong. But unfortunately, viewing the police as I have done over the last few years, it's made me incredibly, incredibly cynical. And I simply don't believe them when they state that it will be used for very limited purposes, merely to catch criminals, because I don't think it will.
Just to put the other side, Harry, as you'll understand, just to make sure for balance and fairness, the Met Commissioner Mark Rowley has said, we're only using it to look for serious offenders like wanted offenders and registered sex offenders. We routinely put it out there and capture multiple serious offenders in one go, many of whom have committed serious offence against women and children or people who are wanted for armed robbery. It is a fantastic piece of technology. It's very responsibly used, and that's why most of the public support it. Do you share confidence in Mark Rowley?
Oh, well, I don't share the confidence. I think that the technology itself, it's morally neutral. I don't have a problem with it in that sense. My great concern is how it's actually going to be used. That's the problem. So the jury's out. Let's just wait and see. I really hope that I'm wrong, and I really hope that Sir Mark is right. And I will happily come on and say, you know what? The police are learning. They've stopped being the political police. They're no longer acting like the Stasi. They've rediscovered their purpose, which is to go out there and catch criminals rather than policing tweets, policing views, and coming down with a knock on the door for people who they think are politically suspect. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'm very happy to say it so.
Harry, I'd love to get your view on one of the stories that's obviously big in the news today, which is the 2 police officers who were put under investigation by the Independent Office for Police Complaints following the scenes that we saw in Manchester Airport nearly a year ago, are still under investigation by the IOPC, despite the fact that one of those people they were arresting at that time has since been convicted of an assault against 2 female police officers. And of course, just for the sake of clarity for listeners, the jury were unable to come to a verdict when it came to himself, the gentleman, Mr. Azan, and his brother regarding an alleged assault on a male police officer. But I want to focus, Harry, as a former police officer, on the fact that the IOPC is still conducting its investigation. How on earth is it nearly a year on and they've not come to a conclusion about the actions of those officers?
The problem is any criminal trials, criminal proceedings take precedence over any professional standards proceedings. So that's the main problem here. But we have a wider problem in that the IOPC and professional standards seem to have got it in for regular police officers. Police officers are put into situations of huge amounts of danger where they have to make a decision in an instant. And then with the amount of cameras, etc., there are about, they are then put on trial, in fact, by their bosses for the actions that they take. We see this with firearms officers. We see this with regular bobbies on the beat. That the kind of violence that we can see on your screen right now, where there's this complete and utter monster smacking in the face a female officer. I mean, that, as far as I'm concerned, that's all I need to know. Once somebody starts behaving like that, I think in this country, the police have got every right to go in as hard as humanly possible, short of killing the people and calling the situation. If you call them names, if you stamp on them, I don't really think that matters. When you've got a situation that is kicking off like that, it is the duty of the police to go in and quell it. And then it's the duty of their bosses to support those officers. Absent of anything which is clearly criminal, it is down to the senior officers to support these policemen and policewomen, not to put them through the ringer. Because next time there's a situation, what a police officer is likely to do is think, how is this going to affect me in the future, in several months' time, in a year's time? Is this going to put me through the ringer? I know what I should do, but I'm not going to do it because I'm scared, not for my own safety in the moment, but I'm scared for my own safety at the hands of professional standards. And we don't want that. We are ripping out the confidence of our police officers in the name of God knows what, but I think it's entirely wrong.
I was about to say, Harry, do you think there's a serious undermining of the police? And is it politicians, for example, who, and I don't know if we've got the clip ready to quickly play you, but Paul Waugh, who was the Labour MP for Rochdale, said in the House of Commons very shortly, this is in July 2024, shortly after the incident, he said the following thing.
The video footage of a Greater Manchester police officer stamping on and kicking a man in Manchester Airport is truly shocking and disturbing. That man is one of my constituents in Rochdale, and I'm meeting his family later today. Our police face a very difficult job every day in keeping us all safe, but they themselves know that they have to expect the highest standards of conduct in their duties. Will the leader make time in this House to discuss the important issue of police conduct?
Can I thank my honourable friend for that very important question today? And as I said, clearly the footage is incredibly disturbing, and there's understandably a lot of concern, particularly in his constituency, because it was his constituent affected. Greater Manchester Police has said that the officer involved has been immediately suspended from all duties, and a referral has now been made to the Independent Office for Police Conduct. I will make sure that the Home Secretary has heard his question today and is in touch with him at the earliest opportunity to discuss it further.
Well, I'd just love to know, Harry, what's your feeling seeing that from a politician? Obviously, he was the Labour MP for Rochdale, Paul Waugh. Is this part of the problem, jumping on bandwagon because of a social media video without having the full facts in front of them, which, again, just undermines the police?
Isn't it easy making judgments like that, sitting on the green seats in an entirely secure Houses of Parliament, which is being guarded by armed officers? You know, in any other country, well, most other countries in the world, in that situation, those people would be dead, because police officers would pull out their sidearms and shoot them. That's what would happen in America. That was what would happen in many, many other countries in the world. We have a civilian police force. We have a police force which is not routinely armed. But in the face of violence like that, then I think we should absolutely back our police officers to go in with whatever force is necessary in order to quell it. And sometimes in the heat of the moment, you're not entirely sure what the minimum amount of force is that is necessary. So you use your common sense and go in with the amount of force that you deem fit at that time to quell the situation. And what we need these pompous so-and-sos sitting on the green seats to sort of go out there and do a little bit of policing. Join the specials, become a PCSO for a few months. Go out there and find out what it's really like to be sworn at, spat at, the imminent threat of violence, knowing all the time that if you show violence back, or even if you're rude back, you're likely to be dragged through the mill and have your entire career put on the line. I think it's absolutely terrible. Of course, we don't want police officers breaking the law, but we've got to give police officers a little bit more leeway when it comes to dealing with situations on the spur of the moment like this.
Harry Miller, CEO of Fair Cop and former police officer, thank you so much for joining us today here on the home of Common Sense. That is Talk. Ladies and gentlemen, call in and tell us what you think. Is it time for the Independent Office for Police Complaints to drop the investigation against these two police officers? Is it just woke nonsense and nowadays that Ed Miliband wants to add more charges to your energy bills if you're middle class, whatever that means? And is it just another case of the fact that Sir Keir Starmer isn't smashing gangs, he's just simply smashing records, with 25,000 illegal migrants having now entered the UK over the course of 2025, with 898 arriving yesterday alone, according to Home Office figures. 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK at the start of your message to 87222 or follow us on messages on X at talkTV. We'll see you soon.
Prime Minister Starmer's decision is so incredibly counterproductive to the very goals that he himself has said is guiding his foreign policy. You know, he's declaring one thing but doing the exact opposite. He's sending a clear message to Hamas that don't agree to a ceasefire, don't agree to the end of the war, don't release the hostages, and if you do all that, you'll get a reward from the UK. And that is so counterproductive, especially because as the members of the House of Lords pointed out, the idea of a Palestinian state is a fiction.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is the home of Common Sense. This is Talk, and I'm Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for the great Ian Collins here for you this afternoon before we get to Peter Cardwell later on at 4 p.m, who will be taking us through drive time through till 7 p.m. And wow, haven't you been calling in? Haven't you been texting in to tell us what your views are? We've even got Bill from Thailand texting in. This is how global we're going today. Hi, Jonathan. Reference illegal boat people. Put a big ferry in a channel in the middle and tow the boats to the ferry. Give them a choice of going back to France or staying on the ferry where they'll be returned to France later. Great show. Thank you so much, Bill, for that message. Another one here from Fiona in Tyneside. How's them all in the second homes of our Labour, Conservative and Lib Dem MPs, of course? Don't forget JC and Zara Sultana for the accommodation too. Well, there's an idea. MPs getting up their second homes in order to house illegal migrants, how they feel about that. And another one here again as well. I bet Prince Harry is fuming with these migrants. They get more security than him. That's John in Manchester, and that has made me chuckle. We've got Matt from Cheshire who's on the line. Matt, you are my Cheshire neighbour, where I live right on the border in Staffordshire. How are you doing?
Very good, thanks, Jonathan. Can I say firstly, it's a damn shame that you and the young working class sort of local 29 intake had to pay the price for the conceit and arrogance of the Tory wets.
Can I just say thank you so much for those words? And it's amazing to see some of the people in the Conservative Parliamentary Party who are now suddenly saying things that they openly opposed when people like me were saying them in rooms and said it was a load of nonsense. It's quite an incredible journey that those people have been on, having had a humbling defeat at the last election.
Yeah, there were some really good guys there, like Anthony Higginbottom, and I noticed the talent that was there. And my next question was going to be, when you're going to get your skates on and join Reform?
I feel like you are like many other people asking that question. Look, I've been a member of the Conservative Party for 18 years. I'm fighting for the heart and soul of the Conservative Party, but I've always said that, I have to look at the views and the values and the vision of the Conservative Party and decide longer term whether or not I align with those. And at the moment, I'm still going to fight from within, but it's becoming tougher, is all I can say.
Yeah, see, there you go, a great political answer.
You're very kind.
My point was, when most lunatic Hamas sympathisers, machete wielders, and armed robbers, burglars, wear masks, what's the point in facial recognition?
It's a great question.
If all it does is victimise sort of normal people walking down the street. And surely we should be more worried about people who are turning up on small boats, who we have absolutely no idea who they are. I hate to mention small boats. I'm sick to death of talking about it. But
it's exhausting, right?
Oh, it's so boring. I just think, but we don't know who they are, but we're picking on our own citizens for no apparent reason.
I mean, I think, Matt, what you've said there is great. And, look, I'm like you. I find it astonishing the amount of people on these hate marches we see in our capital here in London, marching balaclavaed up or using other things in order to cover their face. The Antifa Brigade, the pro-migrant lobby who turn up at protests to deliberately cause trouble so they can somehow portray everyone who's there with legitimate concerns about mass migration as somehow being far right. Again, mostly have their faces covered, whereas in those who are opposing the hotels, for example, are happy to have their faces on show because they are on the right side of history as far as I'm concerned. And then on top of that, you've obviously also got the nonsense where we have even just people generally walking down the street. Here in London today, I saw at least 4 different people, hoods up, faces covered, and it is unnerving. It is unnerving when you know that under Sadiq Khan, crime is rife across Greater London. I mean, should we not just be simply saying facial covering should just be banned?
Yeah. They're a reminder of the COVID era, which was when many of these insane measures began, which in itself is suspicious. This whole authoritarian sort of outlook started with COVID. We would have never dreamed of it before that. So we should ban them and maybe put police on the streets, Yeah,
be nice, wouldn't it?
It just makes everything that Labour do is all about trying to create a narrative of fear and paranoia and just try to prove to everybody there are far right people out there. That's all they're trying to do, is just try to fill a narrative that they've created for themselves.
Well, look, that's Matt from Cheshire. Thank you so much for your call. We greatly appreciate it. We go to a voice note now from Karen on her idea of where we're going to house illegal migrants.
Hi, Jonathan. I don't know why these migrants are being housed in the community, because once they're in the community, they'll be a lot harder to keep track of. We're fed up with all of it. Enough. I want these migrants housed in purpose-built blocks like you have in the camping places. You have the purpose-built blocks. Very basic, a room and a bed, and they get fed. That's it. That's the basic needs. They can have a wash, they get 3 meals a day, they don't get given money. So away from all the towns, away from all the shops, or better still, on a Scottish island somewhere, away from people.
There you go, Karen messaging in there via voice note on WhatsApp. And remember, you can do that, 03444 499 1000 for more common sense solutions to where we're going to house illegal migrants like people like Karen. Now we've got another caller on the line, David from Coventry. Hello, David.
Hi, good afternoon. Just wanted to let you know, an acquaintance of mine is a landlord in Coventry. He has 80-odd houses, and he is getting rid of his existing tenants as fast as he possibly can, because the local authority has offered him £180 per person per week.
Wow. Is this? Do we know if these are migrants or is this for homeless people? Do we know what type of people are going in?
This is migrants. This is all part of the government.
So £180 per person per week. And how many people do you reckon he could fit?
Well, I don't know the description of each of his houses, but if he's got a 4-bedroom house or a 3-bedroom house, that's 3 or 4 minimum, and potentially you could double up.
I mean, I mean, it's just extraordinary, isn't it? And David, you're not the first one to say this. Look, I know someone, for example, who's a landlord in and around Stoke-on-Trent. This landlord is currently building some new flats in Newcastle under Lyme. He was approached and offered, before the building's even completed, by Serco, as to whether he would be willing to take on illegal migrants in his accommodation. Now, he said no, because he wants his properties to be going to people who need them, not people who have tried to jump the queue. But he said, had he took the deal that was being offered, in 5 years, he would have been completely paid off, whereas he's actually planned for 12 years if he gets full tenancy of all the accommodation in this small block that he's building. I mean, it's just quite extraordinary and scary, the level of taxpayers' cash that's just being thrown at this, right?
The landlords are being approached by the authorities and literally money is being thrown at them. And some people are able to say no. Well, my wife and I have a small, a couple of houses which we rent out to students, and we would refuse utterly if somebody came along and nobody's offered to try and take our houses, but we would just say no. Quite simply, because it is far more important to care for the people of this country. At least the people of this country hopefully care for their fellow citizens, even if the government and the previous governments for the last 30 years clearly don't give a damn about the people of this country. They just don't care. So anybody that votes for any of those parties is many cans short of a six-pack.
Well, that's David from Coventry. Thank you so much there. And we go to one other caller before we go to the break. Russell, who's in Glasgow. Hello, Russell.
Hi. You hear me okay?
I can hear you good, my friend. I can hear you good. We're keen to hear your views.
Great show, by the way.
Thank you so much.
I was thinking about things, and, as you know, there's a lot of open space in places like the Yorkshire Dales and Scotland in certain areas. Now, to me, what should be done is they should seal an area off, which may include metal fences with limited access for the people maybe to get out, and come back. Should be controlled by the army. And it should be very basic needs. It should be tents, massive tents, with sleeping bags and bunkers, whatever. Very, very basic food to keep people alive. No luxury whatsoever. And I think if the government came to the common sense and started realising, look, you can't give these people, stop giving them luxury, give them the absolute basics for life. It would deter a lot of people to come away. I say lots of open space around, which should not be anywhere near to where there's a local city or a village or anything. It should be right in the middle of nowhere. The army should be controlling it and have it completely sealed off, limited access. People can get in and out if they care, but they maybe have to have a time scale or a tag if they're going in and out, so we know where they are. They have to come out right down past these people, because I tell you, what is going on now is a ruin of our country. And I strongly believe that within a couple of years, a lot of these illegal people, we don't know where they've come from, could be members of ISIS, whatever, and they're just going to say uprising, and there'll be chaos on the streets.
Thank you so much, Russell. That's from Russell Glasgow there with his call and his ideas. And you need to tell us what you think. 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk at the start of your message to 87222, or follow us on messages on X at talkTV. We'll see you after this break.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for the great Ian Collins. We're now into the final hour before I hand over to my amazing colleague Peter Cardwell, who'll be taking you through drive time 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. And what a load of calls and texts we've been having in from you. But remember, we need those to continue. 0344 499 1000. You can also WhatsApp us and voice note us on that number too. You can text the word TALK at the start of your message to 87222, and you can follow us and message us on X at talkTV. Our big question for the day is, if we're not going to house illegal migrants in hotels, then where? And by jolly have you been feeding us lots of ideas. A lot of you saying, let's erect essentially some camps out in rural areas or indeed on islands. Let's keep them closed in like Glastonbury by getting those big high metal walls in place, and let's make sure that until these people are vetted and they can be documented, therefore we know who and where they come from, that we can then let them in the community if they have a right to remain. Otherwise, we need to detain and deport as soon as possible. I think that is what I've said there. But coming up, furious Waterlooville locals have staged an Epping-style protest after secret Home Office plans to house migrants above shops were exposed, branding it a disgrace and warning of chaos. Meanwhile, top British lawyers have warned British Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer that recognising a Palestinian state could break international law, raising serious questions over the government's foreign policy agenda. And a new button is now appearing on UK phones and computers, making Google more powerful than ever, with insiders saying the AI feature could save you time, money, and even bag you bargain holidays. Well, we'll find out more on that later on the show. Remember, 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK at the start of your message to 87222, and follow us and message us on X at talkTV. We go to our next great guest. His name is Daniel Burke. He's a director, UK Lawyers for Israel. Daniel, how are you?
Very good. It's always a pleasure to be on this show, Jonathan.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, Daniel. And first of all, may I say, I cannot believe that you guys are... I can't believe we're in a situation where Sir Keir Starmer is rewarding terrorism by being willing to recognise the Palestinian state of Israel when 50-plus hostages are still being held in captivity by Hamas, that we know the area of Gaza is controlled by Iranian state terrorist Hamas, that we know that the people in Gaza are still saying there will be more October 7th to come, and put all the conditions put on Israel to stop any fighting, but Sir Keir Starmer seemingly putting none on Hamas. And now we've got this story that lawyers and peers of the House of Lords, around 40 of them, come out and said to Lord Hermer, the Attorney General, that Sir Keir Starmer could be in breach of international law. Just to quickly quote the letter, if you don't mind, Daniel, it says here, "We call on you," this is Lord Hermer, "to advise Sir Keir Starmer that this would be contrary to international law. You are on the record, Lord Hermer, as saying that a commitment to international law goes absolutely to the heart of this government and its approach to foreign policy. You, Lord Hermer, have said it's a selective pick-and-mix approach of international law will lead to its disintegration, and that the criteria set out in international law should be manipulated for reasons of political expedience. Accordingly, we expect you to demonstrate this commitment by explaining to the public and to the government that recognition of Palestine would be contrary to the principles governing recognition of states in international law. We look forward to your response." I mean, how on earth, first of all, can we recognise a state that has no borders?
I mean, it's chilling, isn't it? I agree with Emily Damari, the joint Israeli-British citizen who was held hostage by Hamas in a cage in a tunnel for 471 days, that the Prime Minister is not standing on the right side of history, and that this is not diplomacy and it's a moral failure. And insofar as you rightly say, it rewards terrorism and it will undoubtedly extend this war, it's a moral failure, but it's certainly also a legal failure, and it shows contempt for international law. And that's why these 43 peers, including some of really the most eminent legal minds, have written to the Attorney General to express those concerns. The proposal is illegal, and it would be a breach of the Montevideo Convention of 1933. And that sets out the criteria for statehood, and there's really 4 things that are needed: defined territory, effective government, a permanent population, and the capacity to enter into foreign relations. And none of these are met. Yeah. Is there an effective government? Well, Abbas is now 20 years into his 4-year term. Who would rule this new state? Would it be Fatah, who rule Judea and Samaria or the West Bank? would they be able to govern with Hamas? And we have to bear in mind that Hamas, in 2005, threw Fatah members off rooftops, which is an effective election campaign strategy, but not really what you'd expect from a legitimate state. In 20 years, Gazans and their government did not create a land. They built terror tunnels. They built down instead of up. They built a terror base from which to kill Jewish children instead of a future for their own. And the West Bank areas under the Palestinian Authority is entirely reliant on international aid and utterly corrupt. They're not able to effectively govern. There's been no attempt to build a state. And bear in mind, Israel was built by Holocaust survivors, pioneer farmers and Jews expelled from Arab lands, and in 80 years has become one of the highest educated, innovative and advanced countries in the world. The Palestinians, with all monetary aid they receive, have built nothing. And every attempt to create a two-state solution to date has been rejected by successive Palestinian leaders. Can Hamas members, I thought one of the criteria is to enter into foreign relations, a proscribed terrorist organisation really enter into foreign relations and set up embassies? That makes, Jonathan, a mockery of terrorism laws. And then perhaps the most important question is this. Define territory. What will that territory be? We often hear talk of 67 borders or pre-67 borders and the Green Line. There is no such thing as 67 borders. They have never existed under international law. It's a myth. The Green Line was simply a map, a line drawn on a map in green showing where the fighting stopped in 1948. And that's not how borders are defined under international law. It's a myth. Questions need to be addressed. What would happen to the main settlement blocks? Ariel, Malaya Dumim. What would happen to Gush Etzion in the West Bank, which was purchased in the 1930s from absent Turkish landowners. It was then attacked by Arabs with past echoes of October the 7th, when the population was wiped out in another orgy of rape and murder. Will Jews be forcibly removed under Starmer's plan from those areas? And they're not going to go willingly after what happened last time Jews were removed from Gaza. Starmer doesn't address what would happen to the Judean foothills. They are so militarily strategic that no Israeli leader will ever give those up. But Keir Starmer doesn't need to concern himself with any of those critical details, because in reality they can only be addressed by direct negotiations involving Israel. He doesn't need to worry about it because this is clearly performative.
Can I just say, Daniel, what you've said there is so eloquently and beautifully put, and I get so enraged when I look at other media channels that are now so quick to want to condemn and paint Israel as the perpetrator of crimes. And yes, there are horrific images coming out of Gaza. No one wants women and children to be starving. But people need to remember, number one, who started this war? Hamas on October 7th, 2023. Number two, we've literally got video footage of Hamas taking aid trucks as under their control so they can continue to control the population of Gaza by choosing who and when to give aid to, whilst their leaders are living in Qatari luxury penthouse with their billions of dollars of foreign aid that have been given, not spent, as you say, on building new housing or building what could be an amazing port for that area of the world and become an Abu Dhabi, essentially, of the Middle East in itself. And instead of been investing in weapons, investing in tunnels, investing in propaganda to poison the minds of the Gazan people. And I get so infuriated when people like yourself are almost like, you know, it's like you have to fight for airtime to exist, and straight away it's like, oh, but do you want to condemn Netanyahu and condemn Israel? And we don't, and that's why sorry to listeners, I let you have the space and the time to point out what I think are very legitimate, serious questions that need to be discussed. And remember that Sir Keir Starmer has not answered a single one of those.
And let me, and I'm very grateful for that space to talk, because you know what we're seeking, it's not special treatment, it's simply the fair and accurate application of international law. And our Prime Minister, he spoke of, he said there was an inalienable right of the Palestinians to a state. I think inalienable right is actually a quote from Monty Python, and it's just about as legally accurate. There is no inalienable right based on membership, whether real or imagined, of a people. Or the Kurds, the Yazidis, the Balochs would have their own lands. I've not heard him advocate for any of those. One. But again, he doesn't need to worry about legal accuracy because this is performative virtue signalling, something which he has a history of. It's also something else, though, Jonathan. Starmer, Macron, they're behaving like precisely the people they profess to hate. 19th century white European imperialists trying to carve up an area of the world where they're simply not wanted.
I think that is so beautifully put. And I see Mark Carney's now added himself to the list as well. This progressive alliance that seems to be built between France, Canada and Britain under the leaders Macron, Starmer and Carney. I mean, just thank God, shall we say, for the United States of America, who are being extremely robust. Secretary Rubio and even President Trump himself making it very clear that they will not support any resolution at the United Nations in September. Does that give you some hope that whilst the US is holding out, that it will keep Starmer and co in line?
Whether or not it keeps them in line remains to be seen. I'm pleased that the US is supporting international law as it should be applied. It is encouraging that Israel isn't alone on this, and no doubt there are many, many people, 43 members of the House of Lords, many very, very eminent lawyers, including, for example, Lord Pannick, whom the government have instructed repeatedly on various matters. When they're telling you that you've got the law completely wrong, it's worth listening. And it's worrying when a country like Britain, which has always prided itself on its adherence to the rule of law, when our own Prime Minister will trample over it. So yes, the support of the US has been encouraging. The reality is nothing is going to happen without direct negotiations with Israel, and that is really some distance away. Israel obviously is going to want to fulfill its war aims, and I cannot see there being any serious negotiations until Hamas are out of power and whatever happens in the day after has been properly implemented, probably with Abraham Accord countries who will have a major role in this. And it's the opinions of those countries that I think Israel is going to be far more concerned about than that of Britain.
Do you think that in this country we seem to have just, or certainly certain elements of the media are no longer just actually reminding the British public of how important and strategic as an ally Israel is to this country? Not only is it the only democracy in the Middle East, so whilst those people who want to complain about Benjamin Netanyahu, and there may be some very legitimate concerns there, the fact is that Benjamin Netanyahu will actually face an election, and if he is found to have broken any rules or laws, he has already gone to court before. So at least there's actually accountability structures in Israel, unlike in other parts of the world. The IDF is an actual military force, not terrorists covering themselves in the clothing of the civilian population and using the civilian population as human shields and hiding behind schools and hospitals, as well as in people's houses to store weapons. And then on top of that, the fact that people forget that Israel literally has to fight in order to survive. Hamas have literally said in their doctrine that their aim is to obliterate every Jew out off the face of the earth and to end the state of Israel, alongside Iran, who are obviously financially backing them, alongside Hezbollah, who have obviously had to face the Israelis' wrath, and rightly so, and well done to the Israeli military on that front. Do you think people just are quick to forget the history here?
Well, it's not merely a case of forgetting it, it's deliberate and willful ignorance of it. Netanyahu is a red herring. He's a controversial figure. I think he's somebody that is loved by some, hated by others. My pet dog Rocky could be in charge of Israel and it would still be just as hated. A number of mainstream news channels have deliberately blocked experts on Israel, including colleagues of mine from UK Lawyers for Israel, including senior military experts such as Colonel Richard Kemp, who has more or less lived in Israel since October the 9th and has spent a lot of time in Gaza. I was fortunate to go into Gaza with a number of military experts in September, and that included General Sir John McCall, one of the most senior British officers of our time, included the former SAS hero Chris Ryan. They got it. They really, understood the challenges that Israel's facing, and they also understood quite how violent and dangerous groups like Hamas are and how opposed they are, not just to Israel. Israel is simply the outpost, but to the Western way of life. And there really is a willful ignorance over that. And that's something that we face at our peril. I know many of your viewers will have watched the recent 7/7 documentary. I also remember when the Manchester Arena bomb happened, and the overwhelming feeling in Manchester was one of trying to express love and togetherness and unity. And I remember walking through thinking, you've no idea what's coming. I've lived in Israel during the Second Intifada, and when everyone got on a bus or went in a cafe, you couldn't relax. You're always looking around to see what's happening. And Israel has been fighting that enemy on its doorstep for a long time, supported by powers such as Iran. And I think really in Europe we do need to wake up to a threat and realise that Israel is the front line of this battle, but we are by no means safe.
Daniel Burke there, Director of UK Lawyers for Israel, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing all your amazing expertise, and let's see what happens with that pressure that's now been put on Lord Hermer, Sir Keir Starmer's best friend, let's not forget, and whether or not there will be a potential breach of international law with the very test that Daniel has set out. Callers, what do you think? Does the UK need to be more of a friend and an ally to Israel than ever before? Is Sir Keir Starmer undermining our allies to try and save himself politically by pandering to sectarian voters here in the United Kingdom? Call us 0344 499 1000. Text the word TALK at the start of your message to 87222 and follow us the messages on X at talkTV.
And if this trial, the retrial, goes on for another year, there is a chance that those two officers will have what is commonly known as Damocles' sword hanging over their lives and careers for 2 to 3 years. Now, police officers must behave themselves, and the public expect a certain type of behaviour which is exemplary. Now, there's every chance that that's exactly what will happen. But those officers, every day they go out, and bearing in mind they're armed officers, will have that worry over their head.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, and I'm Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for the great Ian Collins. And my word, have you been texting and messaging in? We've got here David, who's texted in saying, when you say how many were born in this country last year, you do not take into consideration how many of them are born to foreign parents. When I left London 10 years ago, it was something like 48% of all births in London were from parents within at least one parent not born in this country. That was news out today around the increase in the amount of families where someone is born with a parent who is a foreign national, not British native. Another one here, Jack from Gravesend. Mr. Gullis, your caller in Glasgow had great points. Agree with almost all of them. I do not agree that these people who have illegally entered the country should be allowed out on the town with a minimum of a time frame. so that we know where they are. So basically, don't allow them out. If they're detained, they're detained. They have broken into this country illegally and should therefore not be allowed out for safety purposes. A lot of empathy for that one there. Andrew here, who's texted in, this migrant issue is now big business. Billions of taxpayers' money going to landlords, security experts, etc. I say follow the cash. And I'll bet politicians have their sticky fingers in businesses involved that are lining their own pockets. Same can be said about net zero. Ed Miliband is up to something for sure. Andrew, obviously there will be a lot of people who would push back, including Ed Miliband, who would say that he has no interest, and if he did, he would have to declare that as per the Ministerial Code of Conduct. But I can understand why people are getting very concerned about some of this. And Henry from Suffolk said, we should build pontoons with basic accommodation that have been moored about 2 miles offshore, humane but not luxurious. You could also bolt on tidal turbines underneath, would be a much better reliable source of energy. 2 birds, 1 stone. Well, there's some ideas with our big question of the day, which is how on earth are we going to house people if we're not going to house them in hotels? Now, we've had 2 new callers. First of all, we're going to go to Paul, who's in the Cotswolds. Hello, Paul.
Hello, Jonathan. How are you?
I'm great. Is this your first call in to any show?
I tried to speak to Julia this morning.
Oh, well, I'm glad you've tried again. You didn't give up and you're now on here, so you tell us.
I'm working from home for the first time ever in my life.
We won't judge you. We won't judge you. We'll take your word for it, okay? And of course you've been...
I've got talk on in the background.
Well, that sounds like common sense to me. I mean, your office should be playing talk all the time as well. But listen, Paul, what's your view here on migrants? Where should we be putting them if not in hotels?
Right, I got a few things, really. First of all the politicians, whatever colour they are, they need to put Brits first. That's it. You know, put the Brits first. Wait until when all the homeless are housed, when all the OAPs are looked after to a good standard, when all of the veterans are looked after to a good standard, then we'll start taking in loads and loads of people from third world countries. However, I expect the people from third world countries to behave in a correct manner. So to do this, we need to manage that by putting them in secure accommodation, like ex-air bases and military bases. Make sure that they're policed. And when they've proven, and it's the onus would be on them, when they've proven where they are from and why they are here, that's the beginning of their asylum application. And until they can do that, they are basically being bounced back to where they came from.
So no more allowing them, or no more documents overboard, and we'll just have to take their word for it. No, you need to keep your documents and produce them.
Yeah, and if you want to do that and you can't prove where you come from, see ya.
Well, that sounds like common sense to me. Thank you so much, Paul. New caller from the Cotswolds. We go to Linda, who's another new caller, who's in Angus, I believe. Hello, Linda. How are you?
Hello, I'm fine, thank you. Just a little note to say, people are saying maybe the illegal immigrants should come to Scottish Island now.
Yes.
Scotland didn't really want them either because they're illegal. They should no.
No, I'm laughing because it's true. It's true.
They're illegal. They shouldn't be in this country for a start. They don't want the rain that's up here. It's too cold for everybody. So we're quite hardy.
Very sound people, may I say, Linda, by the way. Very sound.
Hardy. We're very open people, and we if there were legal immigrants, we'd open our hearts to people. But at the moment, they're not, and the country is just going to pot. Now, I'm in my 70s. I've never seen such a mess between the woke brigade and people that don't want to work. And now we've got all the illegals, the money we're paying for them, they should have in a camp. And it's a secure camp with security there. Not giving them money, they get fed, they get a bed, and then they're punted back if they can't prove they're legal. And I don't really see any reason not to do this. But honestly, don't send them to a Scottish island because there's nothing to do up there. People in the islands don't particularly want them, and they just get up to mischief. So it's common sense. And this government, and any government at the moment, is just the pits.
Well, can I just say thank you so much for that call, Linda, from Angus. A great new caller in, and I agree with you. Scotland is a beautiful country, and it is a bit lazy to always just say, let's put them in Scottish Islands as far as I'm concerned. But understandably, people are just trying to find a solution. They are at desperation point. We've also got Victor, who's called in before, but Victor's in Bedfordshire. Victor, what do you think? Where are we housing people?
Well, not in private accommodation. Because if they put them in private accommodation, that tells me
they've no intention of returning them, or don't know when they'll be returned.
Well, that's a very good point. Where else? So where would you go then? If not hotels, if not private accommodation, where?
Well, probably barracks or something temporary. But I wanted to highlight something that happened last year in Hungary. Because Hungary and also Poland, they're at loggerheads with the European Union over migration. Hungary defends its borders. So what happened in June last year, Hungary was fined 200 million euros for two things: not respecting refugee rights and not taking in their fair share of migrants.
Yeah.
So that tells you that's where this problem starts. There's thousands of people wandering around Europe. They're not being deported, and eventually they get kicked from go from pillar to post, and then eventually make their way here. But Hungary have also been threatened again this year with €1 million per day fine if they don't change their ways. So that tells me there's some kind of ideology going on there where they want to integrate people from the Middle East and Africa into Europe, as if that's somehow a better thing.
Well, Viktor Orban, Victor, is a very, very strong leader and has been very unapologetic in wanting to have total sovereignty and control of his borders, and I think is a model that many other European nations, such as Italy under Prime Minister Meloni, have been looking at. But thank you so much, Victor, for your call, because I want to get to another caller. So we've squeezed 4 in, and it's a third new caller. It's Gemma, who's from Stockton. Hello, Gemma.
Good morning then. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you? And what's your idea? Where are we going to put these people?
I wouldn't have them. I wouldn't have them in the country.
Oh, well, I like that.
Sorry?
I like the sound of that.
I mean, if they do want to come over, fair enough. Put them in the warehouses. Put them in warehouses.
Well, I think it's. I think, Gemma, you're talking about ideas that others are floating, because, of course, the problem is, isn't it, that if we keep using up hotels, that destroys the hospitality and leisure sector and retail sector of communities, as well as the reputation of the hotels. If you take them in private rented accommodation, that's people who can't get on the rental or housing ladder, and actually helps them put rent prices up, which squeezes those already in the rental market. Do you just think that? Do you trust Labour to get control of this? Do you think Labour have got the solutions to smash the gangs?
Nope, absolutely not.
And the Conservatives, do you think you can trust them?
As far as I could throw them, and I'm a big laugh.
And what about the Conservatives? Do you think you can trust them?
No.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. Is it reform only, the only option?
Do you know what? I actually think that we should have women in charge. We'd put it right.
Well, Gemma, you sound like someone I would not want to cross. I would love to see a journalist interview you, because I think you wouldn't have some of the nonsense questions they like to ask. So thank you so much. That's Gemma, a new caller in Stockton. And blimey, you've been messaging in too. We've got here, Jonathan, you can't put them in cheaper accommodation, remember, the Bibby Stockholm. That's John in Maidstone. Isn't it amazing, though, how Bibby Stockholm-style accommodation is now being used to house people who serve in our armed forces? There's no faux outrage there from the far left, but suddenly they've got a problem with that. Another one here. The Labour Party, and to a lesser extent the Tory Party, are in politics to be in politics. They've had forgotten that they're meant to be running a country full of people, and instead have focused completely on power itself. That's from James. I think a lot of people, James, will be sharing your sentiments there. Another suggestion here from Anne. How about the Martello Towers around the coast? Oh, there's a novel idea, something that's very new. I don't know much about them, so I'd have to check that out. But novel ideas is what we're looking for. A texter in here from Ingeborg, who's from Leicestershire, regarding the Palestine state. Carney, Starmer and Macron are all failing leaders. The alliance of the incapable. Great show this afternoon. Well, thank you so much there, Ingeborg, for your kind messages indeed. We will see you after this break, but 0344 499 1000 is where you call and where you message us on WhatsApp. 87222 with a text message at the start with the word talk if you want to text us, or message and follow us on X at talkTV.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for the great Ian Collins today. And my word, what a great show we've been having. Lots of calls, lots of texts, all on the big issues of the day. Whether or not Sir Keir Starmer will be breaking the law by recognising a state of Palestine. Whether or not Ed Miliband should be allowing Ofgem to add more costs to middle-class household bills, whatever middle class means, in order to pay for his net zero madness. And, of course, the fact that 25,000 people since 1st of January 2025 have now crossed the English Channel illegally. Record-breaking year, up 50% from the year 2024. So Keir Starmer is smashing records, not smashing gangs. But we're going to take a pause on the news stories today, because we're going to take a big step towards a regular here with us on Talk. His name is Sean Keach. He's the Head of Technology and Science for The Sun. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, doing good. Trying to stay positive in the rain. It's hard. But
yes, it's looking a bit gloomy and murky out there, isn't it? It's not looking as nice as it once was. But look, Sean, a load of stories here. This interesting one here. Google's changed for all Brits. There's some sort of new AI button. I am not a tech expert, despite having spoken about Silicon Stoke and wanting to unleash it in Stoke-on-Trent. I knew a very, what I call a dummy's guide for tech. So please enlighten us all. What on earth is going on here with some AI button that Google's putting out there?
Well, this is big news. I mean, think about how often you use Google. Everyone uses Google. We search all day, every day. You probably mindlessly do it dozens of times a day. Well, there's a new button on Google, which, you know, for tech people like me is pretty exciting, and hopefully exciting for watchers, listeners as well at home. But there's a new AI button. So when you go to Google this week, you might start seeing this button. It should be with all Brits at the end of the week. And it basically turns your Google search into kind of like a chat bot. And so Google's saying that it'll let you ask questions that you were never able to ask before. So instead of searching for, say, best holidays and then looking for hotels and then looking for restaurants, you'll be able to wrap it all into a single search, hit the AI button, and it'll just do it for you. So it'll plan your holiday. You'll say, oh, my teenage son likes this. I really want to be by a beach, but we need to be by a theme park. And it should hopefully plan your holiday for you. Now, it's not just for holidays. It could be for planning a restaurant or, you know, planning a day out, but it's supposed to make Google searching much, much faster. Now, there are some worries about this. Is it going to leave us all sort of trapped on Google? You're not going to end up going to other websites because Google's doing it all for you. It's probably too soon to say, but for now, it's pretty exciting.
I was about to say, your booking.coms of this world, for example, and then, of course, for the listeners, there are other providers supplied. Are they would be pretty miffed by this, won't they, if they think it's going to cause them a bit of a headache, because that's their speciality, right? Trawling the web to tell us where the best deals are.
Oh, absolutely. And I think there is nervousness, but what Google's saying is it's going to send you more often to the websites that you actually want to end up on. So you're going to have less of that problem where you go to a website and it's like, oh, this has not served my need at all, and then you need to go back to Google, search something.
Or you have 20 tabs open.
Yeah, it's just a nightmare. So hopefully it should make it all a bit streamlined, and actually you just end up on the websites that you want to end up on rather than searching around the web constantly.
So I might have to excite. So I've got my two under 5, and we're going to be looking after a friend's daughter under 5 as well, my wife and I. So we have 3 under 5s on a day that's due to be raining. So if I hopefully have this button accessible to me, I can say plan a day in the rain for 3 under 5-year-olds that will not drive me mad, and let's see what goes on.
It's going to solve it for you. It's going to save it. And I've got another.
I'm going to trial this, by the way, Sean. I'm going to let you know how it goes.
You should. And I've got another good tip, actually. If you're planning a day out, we use this all the time. So there's an app called Google Gemini. It's free. It's like ChatGPT. It's a chatbot, and you can have like live conversations with it out loud as if you're talking to a person. And we use it as a free tour guide all the time. So you know, sometimes you're at a building, you're like, I have no idea what I'm looking at. I just have no clue. You can chat to the chatbot, and it'll tell you all about it. It's brilliant. Free tour guide.
No, I'm gonna have to definitely give that a go. And listeners, let us know how it goes. The new chatbot option on Google. Try it. Text in. Tell us, so Sean can say how it's going. We've also got here. It'd be good to talk about one of the best ways to save on gadgets over the summer for adults, not just students, that everyone seems to forget. It's just refurbished gadgets, is it, that we're talking about here? Oh yeah, refurbished gadgets. I think just people just forget about it completely. And so we've been writing a lot on The Sun recently about how to save money on gadgets this summer. It's back to school season, there's loads of stuff going on. Apple actually has a really good deal at the moment where if you buy a new iPad or MacBook, they're chucking in a free pair of AirPods, which is pretty good because AirPods pretty expensive. But
If you really want to save money and you're not a student or you're not a teacher or you don't work in a school and you can't take advantage of that deal, what you can do is buy refurbished gadgets. Now, they're usually several £100s cheaper. You can do it on laptops, you can do it on phones, you can do it on tablets. Usually what happens is that the company will restore it to a like new condition. Pretty often you'll get a brand new warranty with it, you'll get the box, you'll get all the accessories, and so it's quite a good way of saving money, because I think people have this perception of, well, if a gadget's been used, it's going to be a bit rubbish, it'll be scuffed. But no, they refurbish it, they give you a new battery, and so often if you just go to somewhere like Apple or Amazon, one of these stores, they'll have a separate refurbished store online, and that's where you can save the money. And really there's no tangible difference between that and a new gadget, other than you're paying loads more money for the new one.
Well, I was about to say here, we've got here, Apple has the back-to-school promotions you've been saying running, where if you buy a tablet or laptop, you can get a free pair of AirPods, plus students get the gadgets for cheaper too, and work for students, parents of students can get it, and anyone who works in a school or college. So quite a broad customer base there that can take advantage of this deal.
If you're a parent of a student that's over 16 and they're in college or sixth form or uni, or you work in any job in a school and you have an email link to that, if you go through uni days, you can get these free pair of AirPods tied in with your iPad or MacBook. It's pretty good.
I think that's a pretty damn good deal, actually. And I think refurbish is interesting, isn't it? Because I think there's always this pressure to have the latest tech, but actually nowadays these camera phones, I mean, when they say, oh, we've now got X more pixels available, I'm at the stage where I can't see how the picture could become any more crystal clear than the one I'm able to take. So actually this is a good way for parents who are maybe thinking about getting a child their first phone, of still giving them some great tech, albeit I'm one of those grumpy parents who would say don't give them a smartphone till they're 16. I'm going to be quite strict with my kids, but maybe that's just because I'm a dinosaur who worries about what's going on online too much these days. But I think that actually, save parents £100, because there is a lot of pressure, right, on parents to have to get the latest tech, and it puts a lot of parents in a lot of serious debt.
100%, and you definitely don't need a new phone every year, certainly not every 2 or 3 years. You can really hold on to these phones for longer, and often you can just look up online how long the phone is going to last in terms of software updates, so you can see, well, I'm going to still be getting new features in 4 or 5 years. You don't need to buy a new phone, just get a refurbished one, hang on to it for a few years, and you'll be fine. Don't give in to the temptation of demanding the new phone.
I do. I'm one of those where they call you up and say your contract's about to be up. Do you want the new phone? I go, well, of course I should want the new phone, because that's going to have maybe some new features that I'm missing out on. But now I'm going to say no. I'm going to get myself this cheaper one that's not going to put me on some, a 3-year payment deal that I keep having to find the money for all the time. Because that's a trap, right? It traps you in and allows the sort of your network provider to keep you hooked in. And actually, the SIM-only deal is always much better than the SIM and phone deals, right?
Usually, yes, and it's almost like the whole car industry thing now. If people are just, you have a car, then you lease another one in 2 years, you lease another one in 2 years, and everyone's driving around in these, brand new Mercedes, BMWs. It's this cycle of more, and you don't need to. You can have an older phone. Works totally fine.
Mine's my little 1 litre Kia Picanto that I look rather ridiculous in, and certainly rocks when I get in. That says more about my dietary habits than it does about the Kia Picanto, just for the Kia's sake. And by the way, if Kia want to give me a car... No, I'm joking. Don't get upset. We've also got here Skechers are now selling tracker shoes with hidden compartment to monitor your child's location using an iPhone app. I mean, this will probably be quite popular, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, actually. So Skechers, they've come out with the shoes. So it's not a partnership with Apple, but it uses the Apple AirTags. And so you have to buy the Apple AirTags separately. Okay. But you buy these shoes for 45 quid, and they've got a compartment inside, under the insole, above the heel, where you put one of these trackers, and then you can load up an app on your iPhone and monitor where your kid's location is. Now, they're not saying use this for monitoring your kids. They're saying you can use this to track where your kids' shoes are. But the implication, obviously, is that you're going to monitor where your kid is. Now, some experts are saying, yeah, this is a brilliant idea, fantastic. Others are saying, don't necessarily rely on this as a foolproof way of, monitoring, because if it runs out of battery or they're not near another gadget, so the way the system works is it pings off other gadgets nearby. So if they're not near someone with an iPhone, then it's not going to ping up the location. You'll just be able to see when they were last near an iPhone. So it's not foolproof. It's not the perfect way to monitor your children. Don't let them run out into the streets, with abandon. You still need to parent, but it's maybe a nice way to sort of keep an eye on them and get a bit of peace of mind.
Sorry, Skechers, for what I'm about to say. Are Skechers cool enough shoes for kids to wear?
Well, this is... I mean, I don't know. It's hard. I don't know what the trends are with trainers these days. They've got a range. They've got 4 or 5 different pairs, different colours for boys and girls. So, but I don't know. I feel like shoe trends change very quickly. So maybe they might be cool today. I suspect if you go into school saying that you've got some some tracked trainers that your parents are watching, it's not going to go down well.
I'm just thinking, when I was teaching, I don't recall many kids having Skechers. I certainly remember Nike Airs, Jordans, where everyone was trying to get for. I used to have to tell parents, you don't have to spend £200 on trainers, like, just so you can say no. But of course, sadly, many would cave, especially when they used to come into school for PE with these trainers. I was like, why would you spend that amount of money on PE trainers, which they literally only use for PE? Why would you let them tarnish? I mean, I'm going to sound like a right miserable so-and-so on this show, because my kids are going to be very uncool, and because they're going to have the cheapest chip stuff I can find. And I suppose the worry now is, are all kids going to be lifting up the sole of their shoes to find out if mum and dad are tracking them?
Absolutely. You can't tell from the outside. That's the good thing. So, if you've got a pair of these, you could sort of pretend to your mates that your mum and dad aren't watching. But it's difficult. If your parents buy you these shoes, they've got the money. If you've got to get a job, get some pocket money, buy your own shoes, tracker free.
Well, there we go. Sean Keach there, a great friend of ours on the show, great science and tech brain for The Sun, and he has been there giving you the latest deals. Make sure you don't miss out on them, okay, ladies and gentlemen. If you are looking for a new phone, you could get some new AirPods. You've heard it here first. And look out for that Google button. Plan some days out and see how well it does for you. And then text us and let us know if you enjoyed the trip that AI suggested for you. I'll be using it next Monday when I'm visiting Liverpool with 3 under 5s and my darling wife, who will be having to put up with me, God help her. So 0344 499 1000. Text the word talk at the start of your message to 87222 and follow us on messages on X at talkTV.
And if this trial, the retrial, goes on for another year, there is a chance that those 2 officers will have what is commonly known as Damocles' sword hanging over their lives and careers for 2 to 3 years. Now, police officers must behave themselves, and the public expect a certain type of behaviour which is exemplary. Now, there's every chance that that's exactly what will happen. But those officers, every day they go out, and bearing in mind they're armed officers, will have that worry over their head.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
This is Talk, the home of common sense, with me, Jonathan Gullis, sitting in for the great Ian Collins today. And what a great laugh I was having with the team behind the glass there, as I was checking if I was right or wrong that Skechers aren't cool. Sorry, Skechers. I think you're worn for comfort, but you're not necessarily there for design. And I was openly admitting how tragically bad my fashion sense is, and the type of, or the very lack of a broad wardrobe of designer labels that it doesn't exist. My poor wife has to put up with me pretty much alternating between the 4 or 5 different types of t-shirt that I may have and the 2 or 3 different pairs of trousers that I have. But one day I'll invest. Maybe I'll go to M&S, or the other brands are available, of course, and style myself up at some stage. But we're having a good laugh there. And my word, the calls and the texts coming in about where to house illegal migrants is not ending. We're going to go to another new caller. His name is Stuart, and he's in West Yorkshire. Hello, Stuart.
Hello there, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you, for a Thursday.
No, delighted. I think you've got quite an interesting idea.
Yeah, basically, when they turn up on the shore on the rubber dinghies, they get two options. They got option A, stay in the UK, or option B, they get sent back to a safe country. Option A, it's quite straightforward. They basically sign up to the armed forces. So they're housed in army barracks. We do need soldiers in the UK, and they're told we're going to train you as a soldier, we're going to home you and feed you in the army barrack. You'll be trained up, and if there's a conflict, you'll be sent, because this is your new country, you'll be sent to fight for king and country.
I mean, that is a novel idea, and I'm in a bind there. There's bit of me that quite likes the idea because it is so out there. There's another part of me that thinks, will the British Army really want loads of these people suddenly joining them that they feel they've got to train? Will they be able to assimilate with our current armed forces? Would that not cause potentially tensions within the military itself?
I'll be honest with you, I reckon probably 80% of them would go, you're joking, I'm not joining the armed forces, I'll take option B and take me back over to France.
Would you pay them, by the way, out of interest? If they sign up, would you put them on salary as well?
Well, yeah, I guess you would. If they're going to train to be in the armed forces and they're going to and they're willing to fight for the country, then yeah, you'd need to treat them properly, I guess. Yeah, but I don't think that would happen. I think overnight it would stop them coming over, because they'd think, right, well, I've two options: I either sign up to the armed forces, or I get sent back to France or whatever country that's safe that I pick.
Well, a novel idea. Stuart from West Yorkshire, thank you so much for that call. We really enjoyed having you on there, and thank you for being one of our another new callers. I think we've done 4 now so far. We've got Gary in Derbyshire who wants to give us his idea. Hello, Gary.
Hi there. Good afternoon. Yeah, it's quite easy to resolve this. Where are they living now? They're living in tents, basically like Glastonbury. It'll be coming up to winter soon. It's a good option here. Here's the option. Find out if the Christian, Catholic, Muslim, there's thousands of churches, thousands of mosques. All they need is a safe place. A church hall, put bunk beds in, tent them off if you like. They're in a safe zone. Put them in mosques if they're Muslims. Now, in the mosque area, where there are Muslim women dressed in the national dress, then the Muslims wouldn't dream of approaching a Muslim woman in the street and propositioning, because they'd behead them if that happened. So that's the thing, segregate them. And the thing is that mosques don't pay any council tax or anything like that. So we just pay money to these hoteliers. They'd normally be shutting up like the pubs by the droves. So, and what they call it, a lot of them have restaurants, they can feed them, they've got a taxi service waiting outside. And it'd be a good situation.
But Gary, if I can push back, if we segregate people, isn't that going to make integration even harder for those who then get to stay here? Won't that cause more of a problem?
No, we're already segregated. This is the whole point about it. But if you go to a foreign country and you're destitute, you go to your church or a Catholic church or a mosque, and they will take you in. The doors are never supposed to be locked, and they understand your needs and your religions. You know, you take your shoes off, you cover your head, and what they call it, all this interpreters, it's just adding to this phenomenal bill, you know, specialist foods and all. It's an ideal situation.
Well, Gary, sorry, just because I need to get to other callers, thank you so much for taking the time to call in. I appreciate another idea. Should churches be stepping up? The Church of England, for example, under the former Archbishop Justin Welby, was very political when it came to talking about tackling illegal migration. Should the Church of England be stepping up and doing more? We've got Lenny now in Ashford. Hello, Lenny.
Good afternoon, Jonathan.
Thank you so much for calling in.
Yeah, well,
I mean, when I originally spoke in about the, where they're going to live, and what it is, I mean, the government have got this scheme going with I believe it's Serco and companies like them, where they're offering fantastic rents to house them in, and all that's going to do is other families are going to be evicted, or the new houses that Rayner is building, that's where they're going to go, and the housing market is going to be absolutely ruined, and there'll be no houses for the indigenous people of our country.
Well, thank you so much for that call again. More ideas and more frustration. And we have a great voice note that's come in again. Richard from Cheltenham.
I've just driven a couple of miles and I've driven past 4 boarded up pubs. This country is full of empty pubs. Why don't we put migrants in there?
Well, there you go. Empty pubs. Should we be using those instead? I mean, what I'd like to see is the pubs back open. Even though I'm a boring teetotaler, I can enjoy a nice 0% or indeed a glass of Coca-Cola on a hot day. But obviously other beverages are available, sorry. So please make sure that maybe we return the Great British Pub. Jeremy Clarkson leading the charge there for local pubs with local produce. And Jeremy, for saying that, if I get some money off the bill, if I come visit your pub, that'd be great. Again, a joke for anyone listening, okay? Well, you know how quickly people like to cancel us. We've got Lynn, another new caller. I'm loving this today, who's from Staffordshire. Now I'm terrified because Staffordshire is where I live, raise my children, and Lynn obviously will know about the issues that we're facing as a county when it comes to housing illegal migrants, particularly in places like Stoke-on-Trent and Tamworth. Hello, Lynn.
Hello, thank you for taking my call. I've been listening to Talk Radio for 6 years, but I've never called in.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. We're delighted to have you. And obviously, Staffordshire people are very sound, so we know this will be a very sound call.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm a lady over 55. I'm disabled, and I went to see a council over 55 bungalow yesterday. And this is the accommodation that our elderly are being put in, or people that are disabled. It was a slum bungalow. It was damp, it had old asbestos crickle tiles on the floor, it was filthy, all the windows were blown, the kitchen was 30 years old if it was a day. It was an absolute slum. I was absolutely disgusted, and you'd have to spend at least £10,000 on it to make it habitable, because they don't put flooring in or decorate it or anything like that, but it was just smelled of mould. You could see the mould up the walls. And if you think we're putting our elderly people or our disabled people in these very, very it's awful accommodation, and it's very scarce. It's not as if there's lots of choice about. And yet these illegal immigrants are being put in 4- 5-star hotels. There's a disparity. I think they ought to be put in remote areas, in a camp, and I think that every week they ought to say, right, we've got a flight going back to Syria or Eritrea or wherever, 5 or 6 different countries. If you're from there, you can have a flight back. If not, you stay interned indefinitely, and that's what I think we should do with them.
Well, thank you so much, Lynn, for that great call. I think you get to the heart of the issue here, which is, again, it's about fairness, right? It's about someone like yourself who's looking for suitable accommodation to be able to live in because, as you say, you have a disability, you need a bungalow, you need disabled-friendly housing, and yet again, we're in a situation where it feels like the British people are coming second. Thank you, can I just say, for all the calls we've had, and obviously text, I'll keep on reading. We've got here another one from Janice in Chester. Stick a decommissioned cruise ship in the channel, a large one housing thousands, basic accommodation, no luxuries, keep them there while processing, never bring them ashore. That's Janice from Chester on where to house. And the amount of calls and texts we've had in about where on earth are we going to put illegal migrants if we are not going to put them in hotels, off the back of the fact that today's breaking news, 25,000 illegal migrants have now crossed the English Channel, according to Home Office figures, since 2025. But I'm delighted that my friend and a great host of Drive Time here on Talk, Peter Caldwell, is joining us in the studio now. Hello, Peter.
Hi, Jonathan. Great show today. There are lots to discuss. It's a really meaty day for news. There's so much to discuss. We're talking with Baroness Foster, Arlene Foster, former First Minister of Northern Ireland. She has signed a letter, as have many other peers about the fact that we think it's probably illegal to declare that, to recognise a state of Palestine. We're talking about that. We're talking about the Waterlooville protest that you're talking about. In fact, the only elected politician who was there will speak to us during Drive as well. We'll get some thoughts on that and develop the thoughts that were in your
I see
show
it with
as
that
well.
one, Peter. The council leader has had a go at Sula Braverman, saying that she was stirring up the rhetoric and making it a hostile environment. I mean, ironically, a Labour, Lib Dems or the Green coalition there leading that local authority. Suella Braverman getting 9,000 signatures on the petition. It sounds like the council leader might just be out of touch with local sentiment.
I think Suella Braverman is just standing up for people, as is George Madgwick, who we're going to be talking to a bit later on. People are having their voices heard, and you can have your voice heard during Drive as well. We'll talk as well about nurses threatening industrial action after rejecting a pay increase. Will they ever be satisfied? It's Norman Tebbett's funeral this afternoon. We're talking about Vickers about that as well. Also, prisons to get a Minority Report AI profiling. I'm quite interested in this one. A new guest, Mark Hammersley, retired prison governor, is going to talk to us about that. We've got the sports update, a look inside the Sun as well, and talk to Brendan O'Neill, which I, for one, am looking forward to. It's always a treat to hear what Brendan has to say. Great and sensible opinions from him on all sorts of matters of the day.
Lord Tebbett is my political icon. He's the reason I joined, one of the reasons I joined the Conservative Party, and always had the dream of one day becoming Conservative Party